Chapter 141, You an Unexpected Guest. You an unexpected guest. I looked at the katana and was fascinated by it. It wasn't an unusual tachi. It was neither too small nor too big. It wasn't big to be called an otaki, it was just an ordinary sword. It was curvier than an uchigatana one, and gave out an elegant feeling. It was Kurobi's greatest masterpiece. It could even be called a divine katana, an excellent item befitting of the classification of myth class, gods. It was the best katana forged with only transcendental myth class raw materials. Despite being just having been made, its performance was wonderful. Because its compatibility with me was also fantastically good, it seemed possible for me to wield its full power immediately. Its transcendental property didn't mean it couldn't evolve. It had the ability to repair itself even if it deteriorated or was damaged. Even if it was in a pure state, without an attribute, it was a legend class item. The lack of an attribute wasn't a problem either since I could grant it one. Essentially, it could be said that I had obtained a weapon of myth class, gods. As expected, the katana is cool. I muttered while gazing at its beautiful blade pattern too. I had a feeling of wanting to admire its workmanship here forever. At that moment, I heard knocking at the door. He had been relaxing and idling around in the office, but it seemed to be a guest. I returned to my human form. "Come in," I called out. The door opened and Shana entered. Bowing at me, she. "Rimura-sama, it's a guest." He introduced himself as Dino. "Is he Rimura-sama's acquaintance?" "Dino? He is one of the demon lords." "I wonder what he came here for." "Demon lord? Should I call brother and gather the soldiers?" "No, no need. Just in case the situation turns into a combat, only send in Benimaru and Shin, please." "Well, the concern is unneeded." "Probably. I think he just came to play," I said and left my seat. I thought there was no need to worry. I felt that Dino had previously mentioned that he wanted to come to play or something. Acknowledged. Then, this way. When Shana nods, she guided me to the guest room. It was a problem that there were a lot of rooms. We used them properly according to the other party. A luxurious room was for merchants and nobles. A simple and firm room was for strong monsters and suspicious people. This was because there would be a great loss in damages if they acted violently in the luxurious room. When I entered the room after Shana, I saw Dino's disheveled appearance. He was relaxing on the sofa. "Yo, long time no see. How have you been?" He noticed me and greeted me while lying sprawled. Shana was angered by that response and sent out a glance, but she bowed without saying anything and left the room. Most likely she left to prepare the tea. "I'm doing great." "Well, I can't be carefree though, since there are some problems," I replied while sitting on a chair across from him. I took in Dino's appearance. He hadn't changed since the last time I met him, he still had that carefree atmosphere. "What, is there a problem?" "It seems to be troublesome." "Well, it didn't go easily." "So, for what reason you did come here?" It's just like I said, I just came to play." Shana entered the room after she had prepared tea and cake. In the room wrapped in silence, Shana set up the table as if nothing was wrong. When she was done, she bowed and left the room. She was a professional. I sipped the tea once and paid more attention to Dino. Did he notice it? No, actually, I was driven out of Dagruel's place. So, when I considering what I should do, I remembered about this place, Tempest, where his sons were being taken care of. Because of that, I want you to take care of me too. No, it's no good. Silence once again descended in the room. No matter how you put it, we were acquaintance, but I didn't think it was a good idea to support such suspicious-looking guy like him. I'm certain that this guy was the type that would say such things like "I don't want work Digazaru." 3. Please wait a moment. Then what? Go fall dead on the street, 4, like that. No, go to work. Don't say something so unreasonable. I hold the aesthetics of not working. For the last several 100 years, I have never earned any money by myself, So I also don't have any money for food and drink. Oh really, how amazing. Go home after you eat that. Ignoring Dino's words, I reached out the cake with my hand. The snack 5 served with the tea was a cream puff 6. Delicious. Isn't it impossible to get bored of this? Dino also picked up the cream puff and ate it. I know. Please make me a citizen of this country as well. There won't be any regrets if I can eat such delicious things like this every day. Rimuru, no Rimuru-sama. Please, order me anything. He began to spout such nonsensical things. I don't have any intention of employing you. Really, even if you say we are acquaintances, I only met you once. What is your true purpose? I asked him seriously while finishing the cream puff and drinking the tea. Dino shrugged his shoulders, his frolic atmosphere disappeared, and then he answered. Actually, Guy said 7 that it seemed like I could be well cared for in this country. He didn't tell me the reason, because he's selfish. If I disobey, it'll become troublesome, and it's true that I was driven out of Dagruel's place. Because it was also troublesome to think, that's the reason I came here. Guy, that redhead ate say so. That's right. That redhead. His atmosphere appeared honest. It might have seriously been what Guy said. Ah, I remember. I have a letter from Guy. Saying so, Dino took out a letter and handed it to me. The seal and the aura. Certainly, I felt the aura of Guy Crimson. The letter just contained a few words. Please take care of Dino. WH. So, I nodded at Dino and pondered a bit. It was troublesome, but it would be problematic if I antagonized Guy. Until I settled the issue with the Empire and Yuuki, my hands were tied. It didn't seem like a big deal if it was just Dino alone. It would be good for me to receive him. However, if he was only here to play, it might not be good to invite a person like that. Then, I suddenly remembered something. This fellow seemed to be no match against Ramiris. Ramiris was currently researching and developing something using the facility I had prepared in a room inside her labyrinth. I would occasionally show my face in the joint development room and conduct various exchanges of opinions. Nowadays, I had become an idol in the development room, and my popularity was high. Ramiris wanted an assistant. Because every task was handled by Beretta, it seemed she was short on hands. Just at the right time. Let's make Dino Ramiris's assistant. Okay, I understand, but will you accept the job? What did you say? Oh well, although I called it a job. I want you to become Ramiris's assistant. That fellow does it quite happily. If it's possible I want to participate too. When I have time, I will help, but because I'm a bit busy right now. Oh well, let's not think so hard. Anyway, it's good if you do. I understand. What are the details? It's quite simple. I think you only need to follow Ramiris's instructions. Oh well, I didn't think an amateur could make it as a research and development assistant either. Carrying things, and assisting in the collection of data. That might be the extent of his duties. The remodeling plan for Beretta that I had considered about since before was complete, and I had remodeled it together with Ramiris. I had received a request from Ramiris afterwards about the application of the facility, and he had prepared large quantities of culture capsule 9 and installed them. What is a culture capsule? I used it when I was remodeling Beretta. It was a container of high-density glass which could culture 10 monsters and others inside it. With the magic power injection port installed to it, it was possible to adjust the concentration of the magic power injected to it. Inside the container was full of magic water from the vast water reserve I have inside my gluttony's stomach that changed because of the concentration of magic power. The system filled the container with magic power when the concentration was low and kept it at a constant rate. As usual, our relationship was close, so it was pleasant. By the way, last time I was asked to prepare 1.000 culture capsules and install them. Even though she hadn't answered when I asked why she needed such a large quantity, but she had said, "Even I want to work, you know. Please, because it will be surely useful." So, I wasn't able to reject her when she asked me that with her watery eyes. If I had anything to say, it was that I also wanted to be helpful to Ramiris. Besides, well, Ramiris was an idiot, but her head was good. She seemed to be flawless in regards to spirit engineering, and she had been studying sorcery engineering the many times I had visited her. Since she had lived for a long time, she had learned the laws of physics. It was unexpected, but she had the qualification of a researcher. Though I say that, such a knowledgeable Ramiris was helpful, I believe there is no need to think about it. Besides, even though I was asked to make various things, it was fun to see how it would turn out. I hadn't visited her recently because I was busy. This was the perfect time. I'm going to see her situation while guiding Dino. When I crossed the door into Feldera's room, I had finally arrived at Ramiris Research Facility. Oh? Feldera can't be seen. Where did he go? Hey, why is magic power so thick in here? Ah, it's because this is Feldera-san's room. He will fly into a rage if you touch things in his room as you please, so please don't touch them without his permission. Huh? Did Feldera lives in here? I didn't think that you guys were simply acquaintances, but to live in such place. That explains why the reaction disappears so suddenly. Ah, the reaction has disappeared. I think it's because he learned how to control his magic power. Previously that guy leaked out a tantrum of aura, and seemed to be discharging magic power as well. Because that was very bad to have in the country we were planning and where people would live, he practiced to the point that he could control it. HAAA? That Feldera? The very Feldera who was wandering selfishly at his own convenience and called the ruler of the Great Jura Forest? Or rather, I can't even sense his aura because he suppressed it. Eh? Ah, he's not that selfish though, you can ask him to do almost anything, you know? About the aura, while it's great, it seems it's because he splendidly does his best to practice. Even so, if we're talking about selfish people, then it will be Milim, you know. Because Milim wasn't here I might have said what I really thought of her. That Milim didn't lower her head, even to Frey. She was a difficult being for anyone to deal with. Anyhow, Dino seemed to have received a shock, and while I was revealing the troubling story we had received from Milim recently, we entered the laboratory. He seemed to not to have heard half of the story, but I didn't particularly care since it was merely a grumble. Well, surveying the inside, Feldera was helping Ramiris. As usual, Ramiris was pushing someone around. Huh? What a hard-working dragon. Even though he complained, he eventually gave her a hand. Feldera was unexpectedly soft on Ramiris. Was this a bad influence from her calling him Shishao? Even Bester, who was participating in the joint research after he had entrusted the work related to the recovery medicine effect to his apprentices, was there. Ramiris and Feldera seemed to be having fun with an evil smile, but Bester didn't seem energetic. He was completely exhausted. Is he all right? It worries me a bit. Chi-si. How you been? Any progress on the research? While greeted them lightly, I advanced into the room. Bester stilled his hand that had been writing on a document, looked in our direction, and then stood up. Oh, it's been a long time, Rimuru-sama. Ah, as usual. By the way, are you all right? You look like emaciated by something. I am all right, is what I want to say, but, right here, I have done research that's bad for the heart. NN. He looked like he was about to say something. Feldera seemed to have noticed me. Unsurprised, he approached me. Oh, long time no see. I'm also helping here. Because Ramiris asked me, it can't be helped after all. That's helpful. Since it seemed difficult enough that she had said she was short on hands. In response to her request, I brought her an assistant today. Though he might not have scholarly knowledge, I think he'll be alright with physical labor. Yahoo! Rimuru, I'm waiting. I have Shishao helping me and he helps me a lot. And also, the research progressed considerably as well. Oh? That's good to hear. Ramiris, you might know him too? Starting from today, Dino-san will be your assistant. You can rely on him in various ways. And then, I introduced Dino to Feldera and Bester. Dino looked around curiously but he completed his introduction greetings. I am called Dino. More or less, I'm one of the pillars, of the Demon Lord. I don't want to work, but I will be reluctantly helping you. Please take care of me. How should I put it, you couldn't feel any motivation from his greeting. But that wasn't a problem. He will be her assistant. After the common greetings were over, I asked why Bester was here and about the details of research so far. The reason why Bester was here was because he was abducted by Ramirez. Locating Bester, who was researching what I had requested in the joint research room, Ramirez seemed to have earnestly requested his help and brought him here because she was short on hands. She wanted a person who would do the menial jobs such as filing in the documents or collecting data. Feldera didn't seem to help her with such tasks at all, so she conferred them to Bester. "Uve had a hard time, Bester." I called out him, and a smile of defeat floated on his face. "No, not at all, because this is work too," he answered. A while ago, Dino, a known demon lord, had worn an astonished expression as well, but his expression had immediately returned to calm. He seems he had been surprised too much, and he might have mastered the art of an undisturbed heart. Because he was capable, I thought I might want to mingle in the joint research lab, not to research but to play, but it seemed things were different than expected. As for why he was worn out, it was because of the content of research. Then he said, "By all means, please let me keep researching. Ramirez-sama's ideas 11 are fantastically interesting. We gather data almost every day, it would be too regrettable to waste that time sleeping." He started to make a plea without hiding his excitement. The cause of his worn-out appearance was simply lack of sleep. There was magic like refresh, physical condition recovery, 12, but it didn't mean without any rest. It seemed necessary to let him rest even if he had to be forced. Dino came at the right time, and trusting the trivial tasks to Dino while Bester slept sounded good. And so, I let Bester explain the details of the job to Dino. It would be good if they got along well. Even though the other party was a demon lord, Bester didn't hesitate and explained things skillfully. I noticed his appearance a bit, but it seemed he was fine. I decided to entrust it to the Minis. Well, the research results made me worry though. I was led to the hall where the culture capsule was installed. And then, I almost shouted when I saw the things that floating inside. "What the slime is this? 13 or so," I screamed internally. In front of me was a bone golem, made with demon steel, which could be said to be guarding this place somehow. The bones were made with demon steel, so it was a composite structure. In the strictest sense of the word, it was a fake. That kind of bone golem was floating inside every culture capsule. Instead of a heart in its central part, a spirit sorcery core was pulsing. It was as big as a fist, however the core was of superior quality. I couldn't help but notice that the golem's design concept was no different than Ramirez's toy. The spell mark was applied to the metal bone too, and the embodiment that had begun as a bone was enveloped in magic power. It was a process that could produce a monster, similar to artificial reproduction. I see, that was why Bester said that it was regrettable to sleep. Each joint was embedded with a spirit orb, but there seemed to be no spirit dwelling inside of it yet. So it was an artificial production of the new variety of soldier, a fusion of monsters and spirits? This is interesting. This is interesting. Was this Ramirez's idea? Of course. How's it? Ramirez was boasting and puffing her chest. Yeah, you can boast. This is amazing. Amazing. Is this everything? I guess so. I'm sure it will succeed. But I worry, whether a will would dwell in it or not. However, in the worst case, if there's no will, I can linking them to Beretta and put them all under control. Wow, she had thought it through to that extent. Unlike the usual stupid Ramirez, it was quite skillful. I gazed at a bone golem in the culture capsule while anticipating its power, but when it's born, it will probably become monster placed in upper rankings among the high-ranked devils. There are 1,000 bodies. Were they created to grow simultaneously? Just perfect. It seems they will be useful. Right, 14. The idea was born when I saw Beretta's appearance, which you had created earlier. Ramirez stated joyfully while flying around me. This seemed like it would become a great force more than expected. However, right now I'm at a stalemate. Even if you insert the spirit, if the attribute is different, it's repelled. It doesn't go smoothly. If it's energy without attribute, it can't invoke magic. Beretta is a saint and a demon as well, though he was able to do it with direct energy, there's no attribute. Magic power would be gathered in the spirit sorcery core. The energy of the magic power would then be converted into energy to invoke spirit magic. But, if spirits with differing attributes dwelled around the spirit orb, the result was that the spirits repulsed each other and it would become non-attribute, making it so that magic couldn't be invoked. And then, can you take it out as energy? Yes, but it only scatters in the air. There's no meaning, you know. Ramiris seemed to be disappointed. So she meant that there was no meaning if, even though it possessed magic power, it couldn't invoke magic. Wait. Hey, how about you insert this? What I took out was the core, magic orb, that Kurobi had handed over to me before. Because this core was red, it was a red core, fire magic orb. Actually, the inside of this core was a structure loaded with energy that gathered the surrounding magic power and changed it to an attributed magic power. It was the reason a lot amount of magic power was gathered and the power increased when it was charged with the owner's magic power. I thought that if I inserted this in the appropriate slot, it might be possible to use every attribute without any problems. It might work. Ramiris' face sparkled in response to my explanation. She received the core joyfully and said that she would ask Kurobi how to make them. I could also make them, but I couldn't explain its principle. Anyway, it could be said that I could only copy them. It was correct to ask Kurobi about it. Ramiris merrily restarted her work. Although Feldera had said he was helping unwillingly, his face showed that he was having fun. Bester and Dino seemed to have become friendly with each other too. Let's leave the next part to them. However, everyone seemed to be doing various things in places I wasn't aware of, and that made me a bit anxious. I was also worried about Diablo, who was still on his trip, and about the training Shin was doing. There seemed to be many applicants for the army too. It would be better if I organized it formally soon. Since after I threatened the council, and all of the defenses had been entrusted to me, the adventurers and the merchants had gradually gathered to this place. They stayed in the Labyrinth Cities area and set up their residences there, but there seemed to be some people who wanted to enter the Tempest Army. I will think about the reorganization of the military in order to include them as well. I left the place while thinking about such things. The things that still had to be done were plenty. 1. To know the differences between the three of them, see this pic. 2. Haman, literally blade crest, can also be translated as temper line, is a visual effect created on the blade by the hardening process. For more details, please go to this Glossary of Japanese Swords. 3. A reference to Himura Kenshin, from Rurouni Kenshin. The way the sentence ends with Digazaru. You can find this line. Hataraki takonau Digazaru. In the first episode of Danaji a Nani wo Itaru ka Wakaranai Ken. 4. Alt line, go die in a field somewhere. 5. Okaki, something to eat with the tea/tea's companion/tea cakes/snacks that goes together with the tea. 6. Trivia. Cream puff is called shuakuri aimu in Japanese. 7. Should I keep it as guy or change it to guy or gui? 8. Akage, redhead or red-haired. 9. Book capsule, culture/nurture/bio capsule/tank. Something like this, but more bigger in a bone golem inside it XD. 10. A QCI can mean rearing, training, nurture, cultivation, etc. 11. It can also mean her way of thinking. 12. Teiko keifuku, raifurishu. 13. Nanja karaie. Kansai ben 4. In case you guys want to know. 14. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 142, Military Affairs. 142. Military Affairs. I must also name the dolls Ramiris has been mass-producing. Magical energy has coiled around their demon steel bones, giving birth to something like muscles. Even so, their completion is still ways off. Furthermore, cultivating these monsters in a cultivation capsule further increases their strength by 1.5 to 2 times. And, of course, the time required for higher monsters is greater than for lesser ones. If you tried to accelerate the process, you would get an inferior monster, and naught can be done about that. Of these capsule dolls, we have only finished but 1,000 so far. but time has yet to pass for them to be born. And we expect them to be high-class monsters. Worst case scenario, they will only be stronger than Gelmuto, so they are a terrifying force. In other words, we are mass-producing A-ranked monsters. In human terms, we are producing monsters equivalent to a Templar Knight. And that is their force at birth. Oh, how I long to see how strong they can grow. Oh, surely you want to know whether a soul could dwell within? So long as you etch a core into them, it will fill with magic energy. Thus we are ignoring the point of creating souls for them, and instead giving them a jump start. Perhaps they will be mere shells of might but no mind. Should that happen, we only need to make use of Sarian's possession skills, to have common foot soldiers take control of them. Ramiris did recommend having Beretta link into them and command this great host, but with his processing power it may prove difficult. Moreover, Beretta is Ramiris' subordinate. Can't keep depending on him. And he also has the responsibility of guarding the dungeon, which he certainly cannot abandon. But these points we can fret about when they are complete. I sigh upon returning to my office. There are too many things to consider. The first corps. Gobuta will be the commander, and Hakura will advise him. Affiliated with the first corps are Ogre Wolves, 100 members. Evolved from the combination of Wolf Riders and Star Wolves. Their battle power is at a rank EP, 9,900 and they will serve as captains of this corps. Green numbers, 12,000 members. They have been split into a host of 4,000 members, comprising 3 teams. Their numbers have increased greatly over the past year, so they will be put to good use. The majority of them come as warriors from the many tribes in my domain. Even so, they are B rank EP, 5,0006,000 and are a splendid fighting force. Next, the second corps. Under direct command of Gerudo, and the primary strength of Tempest. Affiliated with the second corps are Yellow numbers, 2,000 members. These are the high orcs serving under Gerudo. Individually they are strong B and rank EP, 7,508,000. They are also able to unite with Gerudo to become a single shield. We reorganized them into teams and assigned captains. Orange number, 35,000 members. Recently born high orcs. They are C-ranked. However, only 15,000 will participate in combat with a 20,000 support and engineer corps. The third corps. Vice Commander Gable will lead them, launching air raids upon the enemy. The affiliated members are Kiryuha, 100 members. These are, on average, the strongest unit in Tempest. A rank EP, 9,509,900, but coordinate their attacks extremely well. There are some among them who are surpassing A rank as well. Their trump card being Battle Dragon Transformation. Blue numbers, 3,000 members. Comprised solely of new applicants from the Lizardmen. They are only C-ranked. But that be not their true strength. Nay, their power lies in their ability to mount the wyverns and take to the skies. In fact, this division has the ability to completely dominate the airspace. Even within Tempest, they are a secret division. By the way, wyvern is a lesser dragon species. These B-end beasts we acquired with the help of Milim. Standing above all of these are 3 divisions of absolute power. With the Supreme Commander Benimaru at the top. Benimaru has full control over every force, such that not even I could command them. But it seems that Raphael Sensei linked thoughts with Benimaru, so it's not like my will is not being carried out. Benimaru's personal cohort is a group of 100 members of Crimson. Crimson is a group of A-rank monsters focusing on strength and truly possess ridiculous abilities. I attended one of their practice sessions, and while raw power-wise they may only be at Gelmuto's level does not mean everything. Oh, their current level would match the Templar Knights. The problem is that one's level is determined by how much energy one possesses. Their strength is basically determined at the moment of birth. And Tempest did attempt to inculcate greater strength. Of course, in reality, energy does not define your actual strength. Who can doubt Hakura's strength despite his little energy? And the captains of Crimson endured Hakura's hellish training. They are a very dependable force. Then there's Sui's information squad. 100 members of darkness, was it? To be honest, I only know 4 of their members. They do specialize in espionage, after all. Sui said they have 0 fighting strength, but I don't believe him. He does carry out assassinations after all. Sui has sole and exclusive control over them, and few even know of them. Truth be told, they are kind of frightening, and their name comes up only in rumors. Oh, and I'll have Sui supervise the 3rd Corps as well. Information gathering could be done extremely well from the sky, you see. However, Sui can only command if Benimaru issues such an order. Of course, Sui is not the kind of person to ignore chain of command and issue orders without authorization. Oh, and you may have noticed, there is not a single group over which I have direct control. Oh, and I forgot to mention my guard, Shin's Yamigiri. These individuals continued training even while suffering mortal wounds, and have reached a rank of B+ EP, 8,0008,500. The most efficient division. They have developed splendidly since fighting the Templars, and may soon reach a rank. Though currently the most powerful are the Hiryuo, the Yamigiri are capable of surpassing them. As they cannot die, they are perfect for buying time. And no, I did not choose them as my personal guard, the other members did. Let me add, I will not issue them orders. They exist to serve them, and will, of course, obey every one of my words. So did Shin happily report to me. To be honest, it feels like I'm babysitting a bunch of uncontrollable kids. I can't tell her that, can I? You know, you have to wear a facade at times like this. Oh, but Shin will be issuing them orders. They are her personal squad, her fan club. They are not a fighting force we mean to rely on, and their ability is rather unknown, but is this really okay? None of them will seriously die, I hope. Shin has been raising them in secret, so I don't know how powerful they are. Well, surely there are no more than 1,000 of them, and they won't be on the front lines. Dagrul's children will be the captains, as they performed admirably during the fight between Leon and Yuuki. I guess I can depend on them, maybe. By the way, the Dwarf King has sent a formal letter of gratitude for Shin's assistance then. Seems like she actually diligently carried out her duties then. Such are the current state of military affairs in Tempest. Then there's Diablo. He left to travel with the words, "I'll be searching for those worthy of following you." He helped resolve the matter with Hinata nicely, and he's getting more and more involved in domestic policies. Sure, he loves to fight, and maybe that's what I should leave him to do. But peace will surely return after we defeat the Eastern Empire, and I'd rather he focus on domestic affairs at that point. At the moment, he seems more interested than Rigurdo. But that doesn't mean I can relax just yet. What if he suddenly goes out and creates an absolute monarchy around me or raises taxes to 90%? Life isn't a game where you can just mess around like that. In summary, these are current Tempest forces. Gobuta's Corps, approximately 12,000 members. Gerudo's Corps, approximately 37,000 members. Gable's Corps, approximately 3,000 members. We number nearly 10 legions strong. But this is our entire standing army. If you think about, the majority of the 2nd Corps are engineers who are not really fit for combat. That does not mean that I think our army suffers numerically. But it's not enough to counter the Eastern Empire. For this reason, we have decided to send out invitations to nearby monsters. At this point, every power under my domain has received an invitation. Their arrival is now but a matter of time. Since figuring out their placement ahead of time may prove difficult, we may just have to do it once the war starts. We do plan to resort to them only if we are unable to win with the standing army, but... Oh, and we forecast the summoned to number roughly 50,000. This shall become the 4th Corps, the Crimson Numbers. Under Benimaru's direct control. He has the Generalissimo skill he can use to control them effectively, so none are better fit than he. Then there are the mercenary troops from the Council. The fact that Tempest's defeat means the invasion and destruction of every country neighboring the Jura Forest forced the countries to give us their full support. As such, mercenary troops from those countries just keep coming and coming. Templar Knight Arno is overseeing them. There are currently 30,000 such mercenary troops. If they keep coming, I wonder if we'll be able to feed them all. For the time being, we'll set up a garrison in the southeast border. Rubrius will guard the northeast border. Northwest region is under no threat of invasion at the moment, so they left primarily border guards there. Considering that 30,000 mercenaries sounds like too big of a number, I have a feeling that countries actually sent their knights here as well. The threat of complete destruction must have been that effective. Arno concluded that. I am of the opinion that the 30,000 have come from nearby countries. The rest have been delayed. I think we could expect a total force of about 60,000 members here. Knights and mercenaries of every country. Add up to only that much, is that few or many, I do not know. Last but not least, there's the adventurers guarding the adventurers' city inside our dungeon. These volunteer soldiers risk their lives protecting the dungeon city, so they are fools who keep getting killed by our avatars. They too can be of use, so I decided to have Masayuki command them. Why me? He asked with a pained expression, but he's the kind of guy who can actually produce good results. He's pretty reliable at times like this. Oh, the volunteer troops number 10,000. There's a surprising number of them. Well, considering that the dungeon will be on hold, it will go in sleep mode, so people can't be slacking off there. This is for their own good. We promised to take care of their sustenance, but there's rumors of a reward as well. I have a feeling that Sui spread these rumors, but it just may be a good idea to pay them. Thus our country's standing army of 50,000. The monsters in my domain, 50,000. Mercenaries from other countries, 60,000. Adventurers 10,000. Together we are a great host of 170,000 warriors. We're currently only at 50% of the expected mark, but fret not, preparations proceed smoothly. At the same time, the Empire was gathering strength. For as long as Tempest, nay longer even, they have been preparing. And now they have finished their preparations. And this great Leviathan awoke, and in its rage caused great destruction. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 143, The Dreadful Core. The Dreadful Core. After summarizing the military formations to some extent, I headed over to Benimaru's room. My purpose was to show the organization chart that I had just made. While Benimaru had the authority to command, I held the supreme commanding authority and the authority to appoint rights. Although it was complicated, originally, he also held supreme commanding authority, but he was relieved of that. In terms of commanding the military, my amateurish self really shouldn't have any say in these kind of matters. So all issues related to commanding the military are left to Benimaru. As mentioned earlier, Benimaru's orders to the army take precedence over mine. However, it was a different story for strategic commands. Those are commands such as appointing generals before the war, and making the final judgment during the war. Even if the number appointed was less than the number of the posts available for generals, it arbitrarily falls to Benimaru's jurisdiction without any problems, but the appointment of generals for the corps was left to my discretion. Therefore, I handed the completed organization chart to Benimaru. Seriously? Gobuta, a general. As expected, that Certainly, I could agree that giving that idiot the responsibility of many lives was indeed an anxiety-inducing topic. But I knew that for the sake of protecting this country, Gobuta secluded himself to do intensive training. And above all, it may not look like it, but the trust one had for my comrades was deep. It's probably all right. I see the natural qualities in him for this. Oh well, I'll acknowledge it. Shall we give it a try? Benimaru nodded, seemingly convinced. Nothing was said about Gable. Sure, Gable got carried away easily, but even so, he had the right character to be a general. He was considerate to his subordinates, and he also knew when to draw the line. While strategic planning was clearly not his strong suit, his tactical judgments were precise. Even if I gave him a troop, there probably wouldn't be any problems. Needless to say, Gerudo was a reliable general. I made arrangements for the reinforcement of the lookout points in each location I had prepared against the Empire's movement, and then I left Benimaru's room. I should leave the trifling matters to Benimaru. Benimaru is also busy. He's been checking the assembly point for the monster soldiers and makes arrangements with Gerudo about the food distribution and so forth. It won't be good for me to disturb him for a while. How about giving him a hand? I have no idea what you're talking about. Amateurs shouldn't interfere. Those are some convenient words, I immediately think so. Now then, my destination after I leaving Benamera's room was Ramorous workshop. I was going to check on the growth of the cultured golems, magic dolls. 1. I wondered if they had generated souls. Once the golems were complete, if they could take independent action, it could possibly influence the war greatly. There was no need for them to be ready right now, but it was still unknown if they would be ready for the upcoming war. Even so, just their existence would make a large difference. Their strength was equivalent to 1000 A rank. If they were able to take independent action, their range of usage would expand greatly. Well, even if they couldn't take independent action, when used collectively they could become the strongest corps surpassing an army. So treating them like a golem corps of destruction that didn't even fear death was possible. In that case, I was considering issuing simple commands to them and using them in a suicide attack. I transferred through the space, and instantly arrived in Feldera's large room. I opened the large door in the rear, went inside, and passed through it as usual. Since there was no sign of Feldera in his private quarters, he must have been helping Ramorous again. He was probably conducting another stupid experiment with Ramorous. And as expected, they were conducting stupid experiments inside. It seemed like they were trying to integrate the core I had given them. As always, Bester was recording. Dino seemed to be working together with him, though there was a paper-thin difference between working and playing. He had been spouting nonsense about not wanting to work, but I guess there were things he had worked on without me knowing. In the room, aside from the usual four, like Feldera and Ramorous, there was a guest. It was the Dryad, Trainee-san. Well, Rimuru-sama. It's really been a while since we last met. Trainee-san greeted me. As usual, she was a translucent bishoujo. Trainee-san, it's been a while. I want to thank you for your cooperation with the dungeon's management. Now, you've given us a place to live in inside the dungeon. And as a subordinate of Ramorous-sama, this much is a given. No, it's still true that you've been a great help. Please take care of me in the future as well. I expressed my gratitude. She had certainly been a great help when I asked her to help with the labyrinth's management. By the way, what was she doing here? The answer was, as I expected, a soul didn't dwell inside the cultured golem, magic doll. And so, I was thinking of various ideas. I could get them all to start activating by linking them to Beretta, but that would be a waste of treasure. And then, it struck me. I could place dryads and treants that are close to spiritual life forms in a temporary body like that. In fact, based off the data of the technological information we got from Sarian, it's like possessing a homunculus. That's why we've asked Trainee to conduct the experiment. She informed me. I see. It was hard to move around without possessing a body. It was possible for the dryads, but there were severe limitations for the treants. Dryads were stronger than actual devils, since they had a higher position in the upper echelons of rank monsters. However, there was the issue of magic leakage due to not having a physical body. And so, when they were apart from the trees, which were their main bodies, they were unable to exhibit their true prowess. If they used the cultured golems, magic doll, it would be possible for them to move around freely. This didn't just apply to the dryads, but for treants as well. In addition, the treants could show their off-strength, which was equivalent to an A rank, and as for the dryads, they would be able to demonstrate their true power from a distant location. It was a wonderful idea. The experiment was a big success. There was also no problem with compatibility. It seemed that tens of dryads and hundreds of dozens of treants would be able to obtain a new body. It seemed the transfer was completed. Trainee-san's role was to witness the transfer process during the experiment. After that, if there was a need to fix the appearance, she seemed to be trying her best to model them after her own figure as much as possible. It seemed that Trainee-san was doing all of this on behalf of her sisters. The dryads had many female types, and the treants had many male types too. Though they shouldn't have any gender, for some reason the differences in their outward appearance was clearly visible. The treants didn't seem to pay too much attention to the body's appearance. I'll have to say that the concern mainly originated from the Dryad sisters. If you were talking about Bishaojos, it was my turn. I offered my cooperation because I could alter their appearance to some extent. In the first place, it was going to be difficult to change the outward appearance without altering the skeletal structure. As there seems to be dozens of sisters, I remodeled and shaped the skeletal structure for each of the sisters while they conveyed their desired figures to me through the thought link. Afterwards, I adjusted the flow of magic power and finished arranging the quantity of muscles. It was perfect. As an extra service, I refined the skeleton with gold and made it possible for it to change into orichalcum. With this, it would be possible to adjust it to some extent in accordance to the owner's will later. In this world, gold was a versatile metal. Thus, it had a very great affinity and adaptability to magical power as well. Though I couldn't use it en masse because it was a rare metal, it was fine to mix it with magic steel. Thank you very much, Rimuru-sama. In response to Trainee-san's thanks, I replied with shaking and wobbling. This much was nothing. It was also as thank for her usual aid. Then, I'll leave the rest to you guys. Ramirez, please inform me if it seems a soul will dwell in the golems. Roger. I'll immediately come flying and inform you. After I asked her to inform me if a soul successfully formed, I returned to my office. There was still some work left to do. I wanted to help with the research there forever, but I didn't have the liberty to do so. While the desire remained in my heart, I returned to my room. The demon was unruly, it was trampling the demonic territory. In the underworld, or as it was sometimes called, hell, in this spiritual world it defeated strong demons just like the incarnation of violence. The powerless ones had long fled, and those with strength had banded together to fight it head-on. But for that demon, the grief of the weak and worthless could not be heard. That demon completely destroyed its opponents, and continued to trample them calmly. Demons were a spiritual life form. Therefore, even if their bodies were destroyed, they would revive themselves through self-regeneration over time. Maybe knowing this, that demon didn't restrain itself and did not give mercy to those who came. That demon was the avatar of dreadful violence. Kyu-fu-fu-fu. There was no chance for my defeat, even if all of you small fries gather like this. That reminds me, a long time ago, there were several people who rivaled me. Shall I give them a visit? Leaving behind those mysterious words, the red-haired demon teleported from its position and vanished. What remained were the remains of demons. I returned to my room, and checked the construction of the surveillance system. Intelligence agents were placed in important points of the Great Jura Forest, from the sea coast to atop the mountains, but even to that extent unease still remains concerning about the information gathering. Or rather, it was expected that it didn't function well when the actual fight began. And so, I thought about whether it would be possible to use magic to monitor. Magic of Distance View series with purpose of observing was present in the Hex Series 3. However, the usability of it was poorer than I thought. It was only to the extent where I can check my target's appearance. It was inflexible, and it could only monitor from one position. To view from a different position, the magic must be invoked once more. It's impossible to view the top guns like us demon lords, since it would repelled by the magic barrier we always erected. And so, using the existing magic didn't go well. However, I had an idea. For example, the physics magic, Megiddo, God's Wrath. It was magic that collected sunlight using floating droplets of water to converge it. I could make the droplets of water float at various locations to transcribe the local situation and copy it. Alternatively, I could copy the image from a high altitude, then magnify the image and project it onto a monitor. That meant I was creating a surveillance satellite with magic. According to Raphael's answer, this could be possible with the utilization of physics magic, spirit magic and spatial manipulation for. Afterwards, I made a detailed request, and made the arrangements for it with Raphael. Once the surveillance system was completed, collecting information would be simple. The amount of information I could collect would be enormous, and grasping the movements of the enemy's armies could be done easily. During the Battle of Tsushima, Sea of Japan naval battle, the Russian Baltic Fleet was destroyed by the Imperial Japanese Navy under the command of the Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, Hihachiro Togo. The most crucial aspect of this naval battle was whether you could encounter your enemy or not. To predict the point where the encounter was going to happen. If that had failed, Japan would have lost because the battle would have never occurred. In other words, I could say it was quite similar to our current situation. Since I dispersed our forces to various places and calculated the expected inferiority in the number of our forces, defeat was the most probable outcome. Grasping the Empire's movements and focusing our forces accordingly would be the decisive factor for victory. If the Empire dispersed their forces, using timely calculation, it would become possible for us to defeat them individually. In order to turn the tides of battle in our favor and to ultimately grasp victory, the completion of this magic was crucial. So, although the magic was already completed, I wanted to improve it. Demanding Raphael-san to make this spell easy to use in a small place, I made a complaint like that. Can't I do it by myself? Don't be foolish. Wisdom King Raphael was my ability. In other words, I could say I have been doing my best. I might have been slightly overworked lately. After I take a bit of a breather, let's use the finished surveillance magic. Thinking that, I requested the maid, who was on standby in the adjacent room, to prepare some tea. Shana would usually do it if she didn't have any errands, but when she was unavailable it would be this maid instead. It was more than satisfactory. Though the maid was a former goblin who had evolved into Goburina, her appearance was hardly any different from a human's. Recently, light makeup 5 had become a trend and they seemed to have become increasingly prettier. She came carrying the prepared tea. And then, after serving the tea, she bowed. Diablo-sama seems to have returned. He requested an audience, what should I tell him? So she asked me. I asked her to tell him to come here. The maid bowed to me once, and then left my presence. Apparently, she was still tense around me, her movement was stiff. If it was Diablo or the other executives, they should able to enter without reservation, but the surroundings prevented that. That was the only problem. Diablo came in while smiling. I didn't know what he was going to say, but I could see wickedness in Diablo's smile. Me aside, I think that for other people, it would be a symbol of misfortune. He seemed like he was doing something really evil, but this was because he was clad in an evil atmosphere. Rimuru-sama, I have just returned. I have brought people who would like to have an audience with Rimuru-sama today. By all means, if it is possible for you to meet them, nothing would bring them greater joy. As usual, Diablo came to greet me in a reverential manner. This fellow decided that I was his only master and he served me like I was a god. In any case, the protégés, or something like that, that he had said he was going to gather earlier, might be those people. Were there people who satisfied you? Yes, though it was only about 10 people. I'm very sorry, I'm really ashamed by my own incompetence since I'm unable to prepare the core. No. Don't worry about it. Anyways, let's meet them. Oh, thank you very much. Well then, I have kept them waiting. Did he seriously plan on making a core? He was a terrifying demon. I walked behind Diablo while stealthy thinking about such things. I wondered how far he was going to go, it seemed to be outside of Tempest. Fu. Though it is possible for them to pass through the barrier, it would be a problem if the barrier accidentally broken. So, Diablo apologized, but what the heck are the people you're bringing along? Using Leon's country as a reference, I had installed a mechanism that created a large barrier. Thanks to this, the city was continuously covered by a defensive barrier that could differentiate between enemies and allies, and spread around the circumference of the city. As for a big shot that could break it, that was only possible by a monster of disaster class beyond a rank. In addition, if it was going to be broken soon, it would immediately be handled by the sentry. Non-intelligent rank monsters and the like, are already no longer a match for our country's soldiers who have high skill. But, even among the devils, only high-ranking ones could destroy the barrier. This was because there was a large difference between passing through and destroying it. Seriously, what the heck are the fellows he brought along? Were they really devil class? I allow you all to show yourselves. Manifest. Diablo issued an order when we stopped. 10 demons appeared. Hey, aren't 3 of them archdemons? Even with high-rank demon summoning, to summon archdemon was nearly an impossible task. Anyway, one of them had the strength of a strategic class. It was on the degree of whether preparing a big compensation and summoning them in the first time was possible or not. If humans were to attempt to summon them, they needed a large-scale ritual on a national scale to do it. And there were 3 of them. That reminded me, Diablo was also originally an archdemon. They might have been his acquaintances or something like that at that time. The other 7 were greater demons, but they seemed to be special individuals. They had the dignified presence of great demon. These people were once my comrades. Because they cried and swore that they wanted to be useful to Rimuru-sama by all means, I thought to allow them to accompany me. Diablo explained while smiling. However, the part about them crying might be true, but the part about them wanting to be useful to me was questionable. After all, they still had traces of being beat up. They seemed like wanted to say something, but they didn't utter a word. It seemed like they had been given strict, detailed instructions by Diablo. We are the faithful servants of the demon lord Rimuru. We await your instructions. The demons bowed their heads simultaneously and swore their allegiance to me. Diablo nodded, he seemed satisfied as he watched at the spectacle. Truly, I was glad he was an ally. What a terrifying fellow. Well then, we had 10 new companions, but because they are demons, spiritual life forms that is, magic power was needed to manifest their physical bodies. I see, they were especially made to wait in the outside for this. Then, suddenly, I recalled the thing that trainee-san had said a while ago. It should be okay for me to make them dwell inside the cultured golems, right? So I thought. Let's implement that immediately. First of all, I prey on the demons with gluttonous King Beelzebub. And I stored them in my stomach. With Diablo, I transferred to Ramiris's workshop. I explained the circumstances to Ramiris and we let them dwell inside each golem in the capsules. The result of their embodiment was a big success. The demons drifted like they were asleep inside the magic water. When they awakened, the embodiment would grant them a complete body, they might be useful then. Oh yeah, it would be inconvenient if I didn't give them names. Thinking that, I decided to give them names. Because it was unpleasant when a large amount of magic power was consumed, I needed to be careful. I looked at the amount and set a limit of once a day. First of all, it was for Diablo's fight buddies, the 3 archdemons. Each one of them was going to receive 2 greater demons as their respective aides. One of them was a unique stray. It seemed he picked a fight with Diablo and was incidentally crushed by him. That was the highlight of the people Diablo brought. Anyway, let's give them names. Testarossa. Ultima. Carrera. Those were the names of the 3 archdemons. While I was giving them names, their embodiments and evolutions were completed in an instant, and then, demon dukes emerged from the culture capsules. Among the 3 of them, there was a beautiful female type. When I first named it Testarossa, I was surprised since its evolution and birth immediately occurred before my very eyes, but as expected I got used to it. Their ability was tremendously overwhelming and the dimensions of their strength went beyond common sense. Is this for real? Aren't they more powerful than the former demon lords? Moaned Dino, but Feldera and Ramiris were not shaken. It might be because of this, right? If it's Rimuru, it's natural, right? I warded off such a feeling lightly. Bester, who was in the corner, was muttering. I don't see anything, ha ha ha, I don't know. I don't know anything, I'm unrelated. While he repeated such incoherent grief-inducing muttering, he was rubbing his head. I decided that I never saw that. Next were the greater demons. Venom. Veron. Moss. Cien. Zonda. Ajura. Esprit. I named them respectively. These guys also instantly finished their evolutions and emerged from the culture capsules. As powerful archdemons. I felt I had acquired an unbelievable war force, but this was still just the beginning. Rimuru-sama, they couldn't endure the joy of you granting them wonderful names and power. Please by all means permit me to pledge my loyalty to you later. There is a request. The souls of the people who were the subordinates of this one. If you can allow it, please let us use these dolls. I didn't know how many dolls he needed, but I decided to allow him to do it. It seemed just perfect to let the souls of the lesser demons, low-rank demon, dwell inside the cultured golems. Though it was likely that they would become greater demons with their ability, even so there was no problem. Because I had consumed a large amount of magic power, to go further and give them names seemed impossible, even so there was no issue. Dozens of greater demons with abilities beyond a rank H. If it was a unique individual who was stronger than the average or weaker demons, it might be born as a stronger archdemon than the others. I gave him permission while thinking that the greater demons seemed to have 100 subordinates each. There were a total of 700 souls of lesser demons dwelling inside the cultured golems. If these fellows gained physical bodies and emerged, it would only serve to increase their dreadful force. No, normally, even with only 10 demons. I may have done it again. Let's feign ignorance. It's all Diablo's responsibility. I was irresponsibly sitting next to Bester and thought of such a thing. After this, the demons that were born here manifested as greater demons. Terrifying greater demons with abilities stronger than a devil's. My prediction was correct, the archdemons that were just born were stronger than the summoned ones. It had become an unimaginable core. Black numbers, black core, 700 people. The group called themselves a core even though their numbers was the lowest. They were the strongest unit in Tempest, the symbol of terror. When the other demons emerged from the culture capsule, that time is the moment of the birth of the black numbers, black core. One not in this chapter but Magic Doll has ruby text and that's golem, in katakana. 2 can be interpreted as dryads has many kind of female forms while treants are male forms. 3 jujitsu can also mean curse/black magic/sorcery/magic. 4 kyukan hyosoku sosa equals spatial/space rule/law manipulation. 5 a quick and easy kind of makeup, not using too much makeup and feels like the user is not using any makeup at all, the user looks natural beauty. For more details ask your girlfriend if you won, damn you, Ryajuyu explode. 6. Koku Shoku Gundam, Buraku Nanbazu. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Intermission Venom's story. Intermission Venom's story. I don't remember my own name. But what I do remember could be called the memory of my previous life. It seemed to be the faint memory of when I was a human. Apparently, I seemed to have been an orphan. I went to a place called school regularly and was foolish. Before I noticed, I was reduced to a fool who ruled over other people through violence. As a result, I was stabbed to death by an opponent in a dispute. By a common story, I think it was an appropriate end for me. And so my life ended. I didn't know if it exists or not, but I was going to the afterlife, or I should have. When I woke up, I was drifting in a place I didn't really know. It was a world of full darkness, but strangely enough, things could be seen clearly. I didn't feel hunger, and there was no such thing as pain and suffering. I was merely a drifting existence. When I looked at my surroundings, I sensed similar drifting existences like me. I wondered if those fellows had similar memories. I didn't mind anything about my previous life and just drifted for a long time without doing anything. In order to distract myself from boredom, I focused my consciousness onto the drifting existence that was similar to me. From the bottom of my body, I could feel a power gushing forth. I seemed to be exists as a mass of energy. As in this darkness full of saturated energy, energy that overflowed from my body might not leak out. How could I explain it so that it's easy to understand? I couldn't explain it well because I didn't have the knowledge, but it was like crystallized sugar inside sugared water. I think that our existences were like that. I was able to understand the usage of that energy unconsciously. I could move in the direction I turned my focus on, without any sound. I called out to the other consciousnesses. However, there was no response. The other party didn't have something that could be called a consciousness. It seemed to be a lump of power that merely existed. It broke and scattered when I hit it because it was uninteresting. It was a bit interesting, I remember having thought that. After that, for a quite while, I spent my daily life searching for the drifting existences similar to me and destroyed them one by one. The spectacle was clear to see as if it was daytime, despite the fact that light didn't shine inside the darkness. I got used to such world, besides there was nothing else I could do, and so I kept doing the same thing every day. Then a change came upon such a life. I met a strange fellow. Yo, brother. Don't be so rough. Rampaging too much is boring too, you know. That fellow was different from the fellows without will, he could speak in words. I was surprised, and stared at that fellow without saying anything. Words, well they weren't actually words, it could be understood to be telepathy, thought communication, one. However, I didn't even know that there was a person with will at that time. It couldn't be helped that I was surprised. Hey, what's with that surprised face? Were you worked too hard by an unpleasant guy in the surface, too? If it was a disgusting summoner, it's okay to beat him to death, you know. Or else, was the opponent too strong? If so, it can't be helped. Just give up. Saying such things, the fellow giggled. A cheerful fellow. After that, I learned various things from that fellow. This world was the underworld. In other words, this world could also be called hell. It was the spiritual world, the home of demons that didn't possess a physical body. I was inside such world. I seemed to be a lesser demon. Demons are in existence like spirits or angels. It seemed to be an existence that received power receives from the spirit of darkness, and specialized in the demonic attribute. Similarly, the angel specialized in the holy attribute of the spirit of light. The exception to this seemed to be called a spirit. To me, it was an unimportant story. We didn't have personal names. There seemed to be few people with names, even amongst the high-rank existences. However, I wasn't troubled. Because I could think, I could understand whether my consciousness was suited for it or not. But because there was no name, there seemed to be little attachment towards oneself. There were some exceptions. If we were summoned several times to the surface, we could become an existence that possessed an ego after having contact with the world. Summoning. It means to be summoned to the material world from the spiritual world. By obtaining a temporary body, the pleasures of the surface could be tasted. That is smell, touch, and taste. I could collect enough information to control the world. A summoned demon without an ego seems to be affected by the personality of the summoning master. Various kind of information is received from the summoner's side. According to the contents of the request, it seemed that I could obtain a lump of information called soul. We could evolve into higher beings if we collected a lot of souls. Summoning is choosing one appropriate amongst many demons. The place was close by, and a demon with the appropriate rank for the quest seems to be chosen naturally. It seems we obtain considerable information once we are summoned. First of all, an ego arises. And we can get great power by being summoned many times. That demon come and said to me, I've been summoned thrice, you know? How many times have you been summoned, brother? I didn't know what was funny, but I heard it laugh frivolously. Somehow, I was very angry. I hit that fellow. Brother, what are you doing? That fellow hit me back in anger, and after that we fought continuously and exchanged blows for a few days. Well, rather than hitting each other with our fist, we were throwing energy at each other and making the other party accumulate damage. In my mind, hitting is an appropriate expression. In the end, there was no conclusion. However, yo, brother. You are strong. I will call you Anarchy from today. Because that fellow understood, the fight ended. Well, rather than a fight, it was my one-sided burst of anger. I wanted to go to the surface too. At that time I felt the desire increase intensely. From that moment, the two of us became like brothers, and every day we kept picking fights with the other people. A mindless demon is uninteresting. Our targets were those that had egos and had experienced being summoned to the surface multiple times. Every day, we did nothing but fight battling. But, there didn't seem to be someone as unusual as me. There were also some who had come from far away to pick a fight with me. And before I realized it, my companions had reached 100 and this area of the world became my turf. Without becoming aware of it, I had evolved into a greater demon. I noticed this when I instantly killed my opponent in a fight. I felt that a great power, different from the one I had before, ran throughout my entire body. I'm invincible. So, I got too cocky that time. I, who had evolved, acquired a unique skill integrator 3. In conjunction with its progenitor that I had since my birth, the unique skill divider 4, it was a skill with great utility. When I hit something, it broke into pieces. This seemed to be the result of the power of division. I thought that perhaps this ability was produced due to the trauma of being pierced and cut down in my previous life. Well, it was an insignificant issue. If the opponent was not my equal, then they could not oppose my power. Besides, it was easy to increase the number of underlings since it was possible for me to assimilate the opponent and then divide them. It couldn't be helped that I got cocky, right? And then, that guy appeared. Since being in this world, I felt fear for the first time. The existence of a genuinely strong being was carved into my soul. A demon with red hair. He appeared before us, and easily swept us away like we were just insects. My followers and I were exterminated. FUMU. There's no resistance. Boring. Along with fear, I felt hatred gushing forth from the depths of my heart. My subordinates, my companions were. Amidst the anger, an ability awakened inside me. Confirmed. Acquisition of unique skill regenerator 5 succeeded. Further than division and integration. I experienced my astral body, spirit body, regenerating in an instant. Die. I looked down at that red-haired demon and with a flood of emotions. Oh? Do you still alive? Wave of division that I fired was quickly dispersed, and my astral body was crushed into pieces. Our statuses were too different. After that, I regenerated once again and I swore revenge. I continued to chase him many times and challenged that demon for a rematch. Fu. Interesting. There's still a person with backbone, huh? Good. My name is Diablo. By the name granted by a great master, I will show you a little of my seriousness. End of world, world's collapse. At that time, I had certainly experienced the end of the world. Originally, the likes like me was an unneeded thing. I was able to understand that there was no need to use it. The status was too different. But I'm not regretting it. I felt a feeling of satisfaction that I had not felt until now together with death. But I never met with it. When I manifested in the surface world for the first time, I was summoned by that person, Diablo. And in front of me was a monster. If you compared it to the knowledge from my previous life, such a tiny being should be called a slime. However, towards that slime, Diablo-sama, who should be in absolute existence, kneeled. The reason was simple. Even the foolish I could understand. That slime was in a different dimension. I could agree with why Diablo-sama praised it as God every day. 6. It wasn't an exaggeration, it was the unvarnished truth. Like me, the people who received baptism from Diablo-sama, kneeled identically. I understood that there was a person who was overwhelming superior to me, but I didn't mind this treatment. Before Diablo-sama were people that weren't any different from me. I could agree that it was natural. These people were once my comrades. Because they cried and swore that they wanted to be useful to Rimuru-sama by all means, I thought to allow them accompany me. Diablo-sama's voice resounded in the distance. This person, for sure, will become our true master. And so simultaneously. We are the faithful servants of the demon lord Rimuru. We await your instructions. We pledged our loyalty to the demon lord, God, in front of us. And, I even gained great power. Your name is, Venom. Well, please work hard. Rimuru-sama spoke to me amiably in a carefree one. And so I obtained it, a new name. My name is Venom. The demon who pledged his loyalty to Rimuru-sama. I had achieved evolution and received a physical body in this world. A new body and also a new power. I became an archdemon, superior demon general. I had evolved into existence with a different class. However, I realized one fact: even after obtaining this much power, the current me had yet to reach the feet of Diablo-sama. But, I could still grow stronger. In the capsule in the rear, my former companions were asleep in their newly obtained bodies. People who would become my subordinates. I would lead a unit under Diablo-sama's direct control. A female-type demon with scarlet hair named Testarossa was appointed as Diablo-sama's right hand. She, who was originally powerful, saw her power increase just like I had. The present me could not match her. But, there was no need for me to be impatient. I could still grow stronger. And then, someday I'll become Diablo-sama's right hand and offer this world to Rimuru-sama. My name is Venom. A man who will someday stand next to Diablo-sama. After that, Venom greatly increased in power, and was feared as a demon that exhausted and massacred hostile enemies. 1. Shinen Tsuawa, Terapashii. 2. BTW surface refers to the world where Rimuru and others are living in. 3. Tugasha, the one who integrate things. The skill name can also mean synthesist. 4. Bunkatsusha, the one who divide things. 5. Saisisha, the one who regenerate. 6. Our slime has turned into a god. LOLXD. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 144, Underground Labyrinth Capture Enforcer Scout Platoon. Underground Labyrinth Capture Enforcer Scout Platoon. 3 people stood in a luxurious room with tense expressions. Standing upright, they were waiting for the master of the room. The master of the room was named Kagurazaka Yuaki. The man who recently came to the Empire, who had, with surprising swiftness, reached the position of Corps Commander. But to them, they thought it was natural. After all, Yuaki was. Yo, I've kept you guys waiting. Though it was okay for you guys to take a seat while waiting for me. Yuaki entered the room while saying that. Following behind him was Kaguli, who was like his secretary. No, Yuaki-sama. We are your servants. There is no need for you to worry about us. One man answered as the representative. The man's name was Damrata. One of the bosses, one of Cerberus II, a secret society. The 3 people here were the bosses of Cerberus. Ha ha ha, Damrata is stiff as usual. Yuaki urged these 3 people to sit down while warding off laughter. When they sat down in their seats as urged, Yuaki cut to the chase. So, Damrata. What is the situation in the monster's country Tempest? How is the transition of the forces and the progress of technological development going? Their forces are increasing day by day. That country is already capable of supporting 200,000 people, it's likely that their internal development is complete. The formation on each corps is also progressing, and there is a relationship with the committee, which is the council, and the new organization. It could be said that the foundation of the monster's country Tempest has been stretched to include the other side of the Jura Great Forest. The current number of organized forces is not below 50,000. Their number is not a threat to the Empire, but their individual force is high, and their cooperation is good as well. It's not possible to make light of it. In addition, the still increasing number of mercenaries and other forces should be factored in. Their total number seems to reach 120,000-150,000. Regarding their technological development, that is. Currently, it seems it's not developed inside Tempest. As for the barrier that protects the city, its purpose is to protect the citizens, and not to prevent a technology leakage. But, the thing called Magic Train 3 that began operating so suddenly has broken the common sense of transportation capacity. It is most likely that its development might have been continued somewhere else. Unfortunately, even me as a merchant was unable to gather information about further technological development. I see, even you as merchant. Were you able to determine the structure of their forces? Yes. It seems they don't intend to conceal their forces. It's greatly distributed and seems to have become 2 corps. The first corps is led by General Gobuta, while the second corps is led by General Gerudo. Their official main force seems to be the second corps. However, this corps seems to be skilled in a certain aspect, and is called the Construction Corps. As expected, their main force was the first corps. It's a high-speed task force that is a gathering of many people with the high firepower flammability. While the second corps maintains the front, I believe they plan to have the first corps trample the enemy. High-speed movement? Do they move by using horses or something else? No, I only observed the military exercise by using a magic tool from a distance. From the starting position where they were facing each other, the whole force moved at an impossible speed the moment the starting signal was given. From a distance, their speed seems to be beyond a horse's speed. You were interrupted by interference magic when you used magic for observation, right? It seems like it's going to be difficult to grasp the situation in Tempest from now. The information that you have brought back is valuable. But, I don't believe that is all there is to their forces. Ah, that reminds me. Regarding that country's satellite town, the Labyrinth City. There is a complicated building called a dungeon, and the city built surrounding it. There is a rumor circulating that says there is a city inside the dungeon. A city inside the dungeon. Yes. There might be a technological development base inside that city. Indeed. Possibly, no, it's certain when I think about it. Yuaki thought as much when he heard Damrata's report. Their number of forces might really be that amount. However, some doubt still remained in the details. Judging from the thought process of a demon lord like Rimuru, he felt that having just 2 core was too few. Besides, in that country, several abnormally strong devils existed. Benimaru, Diablo, Shin, Gobuta. These people were called the Shitenu, 4 heavenly kings. A core being left under General Gobuta, who was assumed to be the weakest among the Shitenu, was suspicious. No, if you said it was suspicious, all the devils of that country were suspicious too. It was suspicious how people with strength equal to the members of the former 10 great demon lords were under the rule of a single demon lord. Ah, as expected, having failed to kill Rimuru-san is painful. There was no use even in regretting it. Yuaki suppressed a sigh and kept thinking. There was no threat from the knights and volunteer soldiers gathering from the countries around the Jura Great Forest. The number wasn't significant, and there was no threat even if they gathered. But, the monsters that assembled from Jura Great Forest were dangerous. Normally you could ignore such a disorderly crowd, but he thought that they would move more fiercely than expected if they were under the demon lord Rimuru. In addition to that group, if they were strengthened by some kind of technology they developed, it was possible for the Empire to receive an unexpected blow. For Yuaki, it wasn't like he saw harm befalling his own subordinates a problem, but there was no reason that he should be unwilling to try to understand his opponent's forces. Vega, what do you think? Yuaki was just crossing his arms while listening to the report, and then he questioned one of the bosses of Cerberus. Vega, the boss that symbolized the power of Cerberus. Vega nodded solemnly. We should just smash it. No need to worry at all. All the problems will fix themselves. He answered full of confidence while smiling broadly. This guy, his power is great, but his head is bad, or rather it's too bad, you see. Yuaki released a sigh in his mind, but he judged that idea to be acceptable as well. Certainly, if he wanted to conquer the troublesome dungeon, he should check its current state. Miranda, your idea. The last boss of Cerberus, the woman, Miranda, who governed over beauty. She looked like a young girl, but also like a mature woman. She was a woman who emitted a bewitching charm. Is that so? If the enemy demon lord has a gender, we don't need to worry about such a troublesome thing. A plan to gather information on the technological development cannot be made since the place where it is being developed is unknown. There is no one in charge who seems weak to a woman or a technician with loose lips. It's very unlikely that it will be useful to you in the war, although it's okay if you leave it to me to investigate. No, I will investigate it sequentially. That demon lord appears to be full of gaps, but he's unexpectedly cautious. He will not neglect to be cautious towards a stranger. You stand out too much, Miranda. Ah, is that so? Yes, then I'm going to rely on you, Miranda, about the commander of the Armored Corps. Will I do the same as always, infiltrate the Magic Beast Corps and wait for orders? I ask you, Vega. Do not kill the Corps commander since it's no good, okay? I understood. I will put a great effort not to. Yuaki-sama, if allowed, how many people under you control may I borrow? Ah, it's okay. Then, how about you choose at your own discretion from the 100 people? Yes, I would be my pleasure. The talks about capturing the dungeon was settled, and the three leaders retired from their seats. The only ones remaining were Yuuki and Kagami. Actually, the preparation for war were already complete, the only thing left to do was to investigate the enemy's movement. Yuuki had more freedom compared to the other generals, since he had the duty of information gathering. Nay, Yuuki-sama. Will they dance well, for? Who knows, they might. Though if the incitement goes well, we should be able to spread the ravages of war as planned. But, we came here at last. The war will begin soon. Ah, is that so? We need to reap death wonderfully. And then the two laughed wickedly. Their objective was not the victory of the Empire. Yuuki's intention and the Empire's interest matched, but their relationship was only that. It shouldn't be misunderstood, but Yuuki felt that he didn't hold any responsibility towards the Empire's victory. It was just that he thought that an investigation of the inside the dungeon was necessary. It was certain that there were traps and devices in there, but running into them in the labyrinth was an insignificant issue when it came to the destruction of the world. An investigation should be done to find an opening for conquest, though it was only a simple idea. In the end, because of that idea, the underground labyrinth capture group would bring back an unexpected report, but that wasn't something that Yuki knew. When Yuuki had decided on the underground labyrinth's capture, similar information was given about the monster's country Tempest to the Empire's intelligence bureau. Yuuki's subordinates had begun to move towards Tempest as well. First Lieutenant 5 Kondu, who received the information, was a taciturn person. Is that so? Good work. Those were only words that came from his mouth to one who reported the information to him. He didn't make any further remarks. He was not a man that expressed his thoughts to others. With his trimmed short black hair, he emitted a tense atmosphere. His expressionless eyes gleamed with a sharp light, like they could see through everything, and pierced the other party. He was a young man. His youthfulness could be seen as he still in his early 20s. However, there was no gentle light in his eyes, and a cunning intellect could be felt from him. It was no wonder. Kondu Tatsuya, also known as First Lieutenant Kondu's, age did not match his appearance. Kondu Tatsuya was an otherworlder. In this empire, otherworlders were not unusual. One big reason for this is that the empire had a policy called the protection of the otherworlder. Tatsuya was one of the people saved by that policy. There was magic in this world, therefore it could be said that his life was saved. Because he had gambled with death and made a suicide attack towards the enemy army when he arrived in this world, he had received innumerable bullets and was the verge of death. He was lucky. By chance, he had landed in the Empire's capital, and happened to pass nearby the Empire's magician leader. Tatsuya's life was saved by that good fortune. Then he swore to devote the life he had once thrown away to the Emperor. So around 70 years had passed, but he had not aged. He had decided not to appear on the front stage, and lurked in the Empire's shadow. Inside the Information Generalization headquarters, since his figure remained eternally young. The magician who had saved him was dead. He took Tatsuya as his disciple, taught him all his magic, and then he departed from this world. Now Tatsuya was managing the people. Thus, only several of his trusted subordinates and the Emperor knew of his existence. The mysterious man obsessed with information. A lurker in the Empire's shadow. A human, subduer of demons. He knew that he was feared and had received various names, but it had no effect on him since he didn't associate with others. His rank as first lieutenant was not actually accurate. In reality, he was given a high-ranking position by His Majesty the Emperor. But, he was the first lieutenant. Because he doesn't want to forget the memories of his subordinates that fell together with him in his previous life, or rather, in his former world, so he remained a first lieutenant. The existence of First Lieutenant Kondu, who was the director of the Empire's Intelligence Bureau, couldn't be disregarded, even by the corps commanders. However, as his true character was unknown, he was a feared person. Well, there was another reason why there were many other worlders in the Empire. That was because there were many people who had been summoned. The person who defected to the Empire, the former leader of Freedom Association, Guild Master, Kagurazaka Yuuki. The reason his defection was so easily accepted was because he had sent the other worlders which he had sheltered before to the Empire. They numbered 100 people. There were many who possessed unique skills in that group of 100 people, and many of them belonged to the Imperial Guard's army. Yuuki had said that he had found them by chance and had protected them, but according to the investigation, that was a lie. Though his appearance was that of a young boy, his actions were like those of a veteran. Like First Lieutenant Kondu, you could deem him a dangerous person by his appearance. Kondu concluded that the reason why Yuuki was able to prepare so many other worlders was through summoning. To summon people using magic was inefficient, though it depended on the individual's ability. But, making the summoned pledge their loyalty was possible if the summoner was capable of etch it on the summoned's soul at the time of summoning. Summoning was the most suitable way to get loyal subordinates. In reality, there was no error in First Lieutenant Kondu's anxiety. It wasn't on all of the members, but surely an order had been given to some of them at the time of summoning. There might also be a person among them that had a different intent, like the hero Masayuki, a summoned person that couldn't be controlled completely by the order. Because he had a strong power, Yuuki didn't even mind that he couldn't control him completely, and just sent him to the Empire as he was. However, a case like Masayuki's was unthinkable. He was not very useful, and it was expected that he would not obey orders, so some measures were given to put him in line. Although First Lieutenant Kondu didn't know the circumstances, he had guessed that from Yuuki's speech, conduct, and movement in this 1 year, and he realized the danger of the people that Yuuki had sent. Such perception was too accurate, it could even be called a fearsome insight. The investigations on the other corps commanders were not as interesting as Yuuki's. The system of the Empire's power is everything. Therefore, there is no one who criticized Yuuki openly. There were few people who could complain about Yuuki, who had reached one of the tops of the Empire. So the First Lieutenant Kondu thought. You are dangerous, Kagurazaka Yuuki. You are an existence that should be removed. It was better if it was in another army, but it was a problem if the people who belonged to the Imperial Guard's army that ought to protect His Majesty, the Emperor, had already sworn their loyalty to another person. This matter couldn't be brought to light yet. But, the moment Yuuki showed an unnatural movement, that was when he would die. Because First Lieutenant Kondu, a lurker in the Empire's shadow, never forgives a traitor. You should become as cocky as you could. Since your life is already in my hands. A ruthless light appeared in his eyes as the First Lieutenant Kondu muttered that calmly in the Empire's shadow. In response to Yuuki's command, 3 people were selected. From amongst Yuuki's 100 subordinates, the chosen people were required to be from the mixed corps. It was said that only coming from another world would get you a high position in the corps. The Empire was not naive. But the 100 people whom Yuuki had chosen only possessed unique skills that excelled in combat ability. Therefore, they hid in each corps, living while concealing their fangs. They had all received Yuuki's order to revolt together, and to seize each other's corps. Now that Yuuki had seized the mixed corps, everyone thought that the day was near. Meanwhile, there were 3 people who couldn't hide their bewilderment for the unexpected dungeon capture order. Before long, the Empire was going to invade the other side of the Jura Great Forest. It was natural for them to be doubtful about capturing the dungeon during such a time. The coup d'état, military revolt, by Yuuki's subordinates was planned to happen when the Empire began the invasion, and after some of the front line had finished spreading. As a result, the Empire would instantly fall under Yuuki's control, and he was going to start the world conquest using its might. They had received such an explanation from Yuuki. The 3 people. Tanimura Shinji. Mark Lauren. Zhenlu Xing 6. Flared up at Damrata's unexpected order. Hey, Asen. We were called for the labyrinth capture, athletics. Don't joke around. Or rather, you are making fun of us. Well, just wait, Mark. Yuuki-san may have some kind of plan. Please tell us what you know, Damrata-san. Calming the raging Mark, Shinji asked Damrata. The 100 people were battle elites, each possessing a unique skill. Their pride was high, and they were looking down on Cerberus. However, they acknowledged the superiority of Vega, who was a boss symbolizing power. But, there were few people who respected Damrata whose specialty seemed to be calculating money. Among those 100 people, Shinji was relatively close to Damrata. This time too, he had volunteered for the role in order to pacify Mark, who was venting his anger on Damrata. Zhen Luxin, this man was taciturn, and what he was thinking was unknown. But he could certainly understand what was been said. His braided black hair rested down his back, and he wore Chinese-styled clothes similar to Damrata. Various hidden weapons seemed to be concealed inside his clothes. Shinji naturally realized that he had gathered this team. There was unease, but these three were the members of the Labyrinth Capture Group. Their official name was Enforcer Scout Platoon. That's why Shinji, as the team leader, asked Damrata that. Damrata explained the situation. Since the inside of the labyrinth was unknown, this investigation was in preparation for the coming war. There was a possibility that some secrets were hidden inside the labyrinth. It might not be an issue, even if it was ignored, but the investigation was for the sake of caution. No, Yuuki-sama actually seemed to have another intention. That's not something that should guess. I better not say something careless. Shinji decided that it was unnecessary to daringly ask about everything, and Damrata finished his explanation. However, the explanation of Demon Lord Rimura's dreadfulness and wariness was intentionally repeated many times. The labyrinth was created by that Demon Lord in full confidence. As far as Damrata was concerned, he hadn't heard any stories of it having been captured yet. It was only a rumor, but the hero Masayuki had broken through to the 30th floor. Please don't neglect to be cautious. Hey, Asen. Are you underestimating us? Now, Mark. Please wait. Damrata-san, I understand the conversation. Can I ask for a guide? Guiding and assistance on the other side are left to me. We leave once the preparations are complete. Understood. The next day, the group, guided by Damrata, went to the transfer magic formation. Could these three really capture the labyrinth? Damrata was more worried about whether the capture was even possible, rather than what was hidden inside the labyrinth. But he didn't say it. He understood that it would only be a complaint even if he said it. It was better to encounter some bitter experiences, so Damrata thought. And so, the challenge to the labyrinth from the Empire by the three members of the Enforcer Scout Platoon began. 1. It's written as Atama but it's read as Bosa. 2. Written in kanji as Sankyuta, which means 3 great head or 3 leaders, but read as Kiribroso/Cerberus. 3. I forgot to give the kanji before of Madaresa before, it can mean magic/sorcery train. 4. Dancing is like moving, just like Yuuki want. Dancing in his palms or something similar like that. 5. Chui, an old, historical, version of the military rank in Japan. 6. His name is Shinryosei. Normally a Japanese name is composed by kanji. His name is written in katakana, so he's a foreign, and by the description of his introduction, it seems he's Chinese, so his name becomes the one now. Other alt, Qin Luxing/Shen Luxing. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 145, Underground Labyrinth Capture of Irresistible Force. Underground Labyrinth Capture of Irresistible Force. The report both surprised and shocked us. It was about the appearance of people who finally captured the dungeon's 50th floor. Certainly, this year the adventurers had improved their skills considerably. Groups that were able to capture the 30th floor had gradually begun to appear. The devised floor capturing strategies used the phenomenon known as barely escaping death, zombie attack plan, coming back from death strategy, 1, or abandoning scapegoat plan, for glory strategy, 2, and so forth. There were people that used a frontal attack as well, accompanied by the proficiency of their skill and the improvement of their equipment. They also had their ability improved. But, after the 30th floor, not only was there a trap that killed everyone at the beginning, the monsters also came groups and fought together. It becomes difficult to handle that when using the unorthodox capturing methods. So, the most recent leading capture group was mimicking the capture method that Masayuki and his party used against the Guardian of the 40th floor, but the Guardian of 40th floor was Tempest Serpent. It was the black snake I had met way back in the beginning. It had breath attack that was effective against groups, and many people had watery eyes after their equipment was destroyed by it. Then, because I was nice, I kindly rent them equipment with the Tempest crest. They would need to compensate us if they broke. Well, the earnings they got till now were completely deprived. We thought that it was a reliable guardian that would bring us a wonderful fortune. If a person that could defeat it appeared, then. Besides, the guardian of the 50th floor was Gozairl. He was violence incarnate when his restraint were removed. After all, Gozairl wasn't weak. Either way, maybe thanks to the restraints placed on him while on the 30th floor, he was able to come up with a creative way of battling for this floor. The old, foolish Gozairl, that only depending on his own strength, had disappeared. It was the same with Mazurl. Racking his brains together with Gozairl, the two devised their fighting style by discussing with each other. Before we were aware of it, the arguments they would hold whenever they met were now forgotten, and the two had become close friends now. The two alternated guarding the 50th floor. I remembered that I set the equipment drop to 100% for the first time win only, as a reward in case someone was able to defeat them. It was a unique class equipment, the Minus series. It was equipment that boasted very nonsensical power named after the ruler of Labyrinth, Minotaur. The weapon was either a Minus Bardic, Cowhead Devil's Battle Axe, 3 or a Minus Trident, Horsehead Devil's War Spear, 4. There was no shield. After that was the pieces for a complete set of armor. It was the jewel which Kurobe's best disciples had used the best of their ability to create. Because I believed that there wouldn't be many people capable of reaching this place so easily, I had only prepared 10 sets, and no more. In the first place, Gozairl and Mazurl had become stronger after I gave them names, so if a person capable of defeating them appeared, I might scout them. Because of this, I had arranged that an emergency message would be sent if they were defeated. Either way, if a lot of adventurers attacked them in waves, the two would accumulate fatigue and be defeated. But no matter the methods the adventurers used to defeat them, I wanted to know about the people that managed to defeat Gozairl and Mazurl. In case they didn't want to be scouted, there was a possibility that the other party was hostile. This time as well, were they attacking in waves because of Masayoki's charisma? When I thought so, my expectations were overturned. In the report, it was said that Gozairl was defeated by just 3 people. Furthermore, they weren't people that had been active recently, they seemed to be newcomers that had arrived recently. It was necessary to promptly collect information on the newcomers. That was why I cancelled the long-awaited test run of the improved surveillance magic, and went to the command room that had been prepared inside the labyrinth. When I entered the room, Ramiris and Feldera were there. Dino and Bester seemed to have taken a day off today. Disregarding Dino, Bester had accumulating fatigue since he had come to this place recently, so it was just perfect for him. Ramiris and Feldera were full of energy. These two people were probably strangers to the concept of tiredness. It was the so-called children's stamina. If children were doing things that they were interested in, then they wouldn't get tired at all. Oh, you came, Commander. There's no change in the situation today. I didn't understand what was it that hadn't changed. Perhaps, she might have said it because it suited the mood. I looked at the picture projected onto the big screen. Projected onto the screen were 3 youngsters. It seemed they traversed the floor with like an unstoppable force. The way they fought was really unique as well. With a clearly abnormal throwing power, there was a person that grabbed air and threw it. He had a large, sturdy build, and brown hair. With his fine, chiseled features, he had a considerably good appearance. He wasn't wearing heavy equipment like iron armor, instead he was wearing chain mail made from weaved steel fiber, and a coat over it. They all looked pretty much the same. The skinny one had concealed his entire body with a pitch black robe, another one seemed to be wearing a white robe over the chain mail. He looked Asian, and the white robe was the kind often seen in hospitals. In every aspect, he was Japanese-like. Without a doubt, he seemed to be an otherworlder. A group of 6 death wolves, ghost wolves, came running. With a speed that typical adventurers couldn't perceive, the wolves closed the distance in a dash. It seemed to have judged the situation instantly from a distance, it would only receive attacks one-sidedly. As expected of the monsters above the 50th floor. Even a monster that looked like a small fry had considerable intelligence. By the way, 1 death wolf is considered B end rank, so it spelled trouble if 6 of them gathered. It was also a ghost-type monster with the trait of nullifying damage if they weren't attacked with a holy attribute weapon or a magic weapon. Even if its body vanished, it would regenerate immediately. So even just one wolf was dangerous if you didn't possess the countermeasure for it. You would be devoured instantly if careless. Don't underestimate me, you dogs. The one with brown hair who had been grabbing and throwing air until now, took out an ominous battle axe and swung it powerfully. With one sweep, 3 death wolves turned into light particles and disappeared. Ah, that ominous battle axe, I soon remembered that it was minus bardic. It was a unique class equipment, and naturally, it belonged to the magic weapon category. Even if someone couldn't cast magic, it was still possible to damage a monster with the magic power possessed by the weapon. Furthermore, this was related to the raw materials used to make the Minus series. Silver that had been mixed with demon steel and turned into mithril. It was a specialized weapon that could easily inflict a great deal of damage to undead-type and ghost-type monsters. Ah, if it's minus bardic, then Death Wolf will be defeated in one blow. Yeah. That weapon is the thing that Gozaerl dropped. The combat sense and weapon adaptability of the person that picked up the weapon seems to be great. Feldera agreed with my grumble. After that, I heard the story of their battles until now while observing their combat style. As for the snack, nowadays, I preferred potatoes. Based on the story I heard about them, their battles until now were mostly of that brown-haired guy defeating the enemy. I saw it myself and understood it. The brown-haired guy was certainly strong. But, what happened to the various traps in the labyrinth? Regarding those, the black-robed guy smoothly discovered them, and seemed to have told his friend their position. As for incomprehensible traps or tricky traps, those were a crucial part from the 50th floor and below. As if he could see it, the black-robed guy precisely indicated the trap's location. I was certain that it was some kind of ability. You could say that he was an indispensable person for capturing a labyrinth. The last one was the white-robed guy. His turn had only come up once until now. That was during the fight against Gozaerl. I had seen the footage through the thought link, but I was certain that this fellow was also someone with a unique class ability. He had taken out syringes from his pocket, and given them to his 2 companions. Immediately after that, Gozaerl's movement had rapidly become dull. He might have received some kind of abnormal status, but as Gozaerl's movements became dull, he became an easy mark for the brown-haired guy. The one who landed the finishing blow was the white-robed guy. He had taken out a scalpel that shone silver, from his pocket, and in an instant, he had cut the blood vessels on Gozaerl's nape. I noticed that he was from the intelligence faction, which assesses the situation and takes the time to wait for a change in the situation, unlike a musclehead that didn't think about anything. Their party was very balanced. Notification. The result of the analysis is in. The attack that individual, Gozaerl, received was something similar to a neurotoxin. The room was filled with poisonous gas. The poison obstructs the movement of those who lack immunity to it. There is no remaining effect now. Ah, poisonous gas. And in addition, he seemed to be able to come up with strategies that worked against the enemy, on the spot. I considered the results of the analysis, which Raphael had made based off of the data, which remained in the air. I'd guessed based off of his white robe, but there's probably no doubting that was a medical-related unique skill 5. At that time, I heard a knocking sound from the door. Then the door opened, and Shana entered the room. She came in holding an entry paper, which had the registered information of the 3 from the Adventurers Guild, which had become a branch of the committee. This is the registered information of the 3 that succeeded in capturing the 50th floor. Shana handed over the paper after bowing. I received it with a nod and confirmed its contents. Shinji. 23 years old, Wizard 6. Mark. 26 years old, Warrior 7. Zhen. 17 years old, Hunter 8. So, only the minimum information had been filled out. Their place of origin was a small country near the Empire. The reason for coming here that was written on the paper was that they had heard rumors about the dungeon from a merchant. Well, that was a lie no matter how you looked at it. If I recalled correctly, magicians needed to make a contract with spirits to use magic. Sorcerers handled chance based on their knowledge of elements. Wizard was a high-rank job that needed the expertise of both jobs. It was a lofty, and difficult, occupation that not everyone could attain. Warriors were similar in that they needed both the expertise from the fighter job and the swordsman job, because a warrior was a close combat expert capable of using every type of weapon. Obviously, it wasn't an easy occupation to attain. We arrived at the last one, a hunter. This occupation could be called the peak for those who hunt monster. It was an occupation that relied mostly upon, and belonged to, the subjugation guild. In this world, there were few people with excellent skills in detecting traps or monsters with the thief job. That was because, currently, thief really meant thief in the truest sense. Meanwhile, calling oneself a hunter was possible since there was no native hunting tribe here. Certainly they were a good, balanced party, but if it was true that they had come from the Empire, without a doubt, they were spies. However, were they foolishly honest enough to have written the truth? They might have done that, but I thought that there were other choices, like they could have decided to say that they came here from the Demon Lord territory under Milim's rule, or from another continent under Leon's rule. Oh well. The truth didn't matter, there was one person which I surely needed to pay attention to. The black-haired, white-robed, young man, Shinji. Instead of magic, he was using a mysterious ability. Or rather, Shinji, no matter how you looked at it, it was Shinji. The brown-haired guy was Mark. He had not only thrown air bullets in monsters' corpses, but falling rock as well. Anyway, it seemed he could throw anything as long as he could grab it. He grabbed a living monster and threw it, inflicting damage to both enemies, and defeated them together, which almost made me spew out the tea. But it seemed his being a warrior was not a lie, since he handling minus bardic skillfully. The black-robed guy was Zhen. This guy seemed to have eyes capable of seeing through traps perfectly. In the beginning I had thought that his intuition was sharp, but it seemed to be sense danger, sense monster, and sense trap. With all of those, he managed to evade everything beforehand. He looked at the places with traps, and conferred their location to his friends, and I was certain that it wasn't a coincidence. Originally, on the 50th floor and beyond, there were increasingly brutal traps that became the main threat instead of the monster's strength. Without looking strange, the room could have been filled with ghost-type monsters, had its air pressure changed, been without oxygen, or had poisonous water. Like that, I had set traps of a dangerous level to prevent the capture of the dungeon, but everything was seen through by him, so they were all useless. Moreover, his sense of direction was also excellent. He wasn't deceived by the floor's rotation and the like, and easily advanced using the shortest route. Obviously, a maze wasn't effective. If there was an injury, the white-robed youth, Shinji, could easily treat it. Although they were just 3 people, they were people specialized in capturing labyrinths 9. However, the 3 of us joyfully watched their method of capturing the dungeon. No, there was no way that we would use them as a reference for when we were going to capture the dungeon, or anything like that. Don't you think like that? Hey, you over there, I was only honestly praising the strong person's way of fighting. Shana poured the 3 of us another cup of tea while astounded. The tea today was black tea with the pleasant fragrance of apple. Starting from the 50th floor was the real thing, but the degree of difficulty didn't change even if there was someone that hadn't activated the trap until the 50th floor. If that was so, I thought that to truly test their ability, I would use the result of whether they could defeat the 70th floor's guardian or not. The guardian of the 60th floor was the Ghost King Adalman. It was a high-ranking undead king that looked like a polished skeleton. It was a high-ranking priest who had gone to purify the dead spirits that had gushed forth from the remains of a battlefield in Jura Great Forest, but he had become the shadow of his former self after becoming an undead, because of an undead's abnormal status, that is, undeadification. But, as a result, Priest Adalman had become an undead with enormous magic power, though it was a case of the tail wagging the dog. It had become the king of ghosts with that magic power, and seemed to spend its time quietly in a cave. When I assumed the position of Demon Lord, I specially went to greet him. At that time, it was almost purified. It wasn't a funny story. 10. That him, was guarding the 60th floor. Unfortunately, I believed that those 3 were at a disadvantage. Ghost King Adalman had a fighting power beyond a rank EP 44,000. Naturally, he had a higher rank than Gozaerl and Mazurl. His strength was not on par with the devil's, but it couldn't be helped since its weak point was too obvious. He was awfully weak to the holy attribute and light attribute. He was an extremely troublesome being if you fought it seriously, since it could summon ghost knights and ghost wolves endlessly. If he attacked a town, he would be acknowledged as a disaster, although it could be said that they also shared the same attribute weakness. Therefore, for this floor, since they would have gotten used to the traps, I had set an easy to clear boss. The people who were able to defeat Gozaerl and Mazurl using only brute force, may defeat it easily if they only paid attention to the attribute's weakness. Moreover, it was a mistake, with minus Bardic they could defeat an enemy with one blow. That thing was made from holy attribute Mithril, it delivered double the damage to undead type and ghost type enemies. Because of the limited, first time only, service, or something like that, they got a bit cocky, right? So, I did something bad to Ghost King Adalman. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be capable of stopping those three. Well, it might have been my fault, but I hoped he could forgive me. So, as I thought that, I was looking forward the guardian of the 70th floor. 1. Shi Madari Sikasan, Zanbi Ataku. 2. Ikao no Na no Shita Ni Sikasan, Ikani Okazari Puran. 3. Gozumajin no Senpua, Minoso Baradishu. 4. Mizumajin no Signori, Minoso Toradentua. 5. Originally the kanji used is for doctor. But I changed it to match the skill ability. You will know about the skill's ability in the next chapter. 6. Midashi, Wizado, Magic Master, Wizard. 7. Sentashi, Warrior, Combator, Warrior. 8. Shuriuka, Hanta, Hunter. 9. Is in capturing/conquering/clearing dungeon. 10. The line is a bit vague, it's either Adalman that almost been purified or Rimuru. There weren't enough details about it. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 146, Underground Labyrinth Capture Outcome and Conclusion. Underground Labyrinth Capture Outcome and Conclusion. Perceiving that invaders has entered his domain, the Ghost King One Adalman curled his meatless lips. Then, he made noise by grinding his teeth slightly. It was hard to understand it, but it could be said that the Ghost King Adalman was grinning broadly, and sneering. You seems to be in a pretty good mood, Adalman-sama. The man, who was a holy knight, and his trusted confidant, greeted Adalman. He was a ghost, and didn't have a physical body. However, he stood with a figure unaltered from when he still alive. Though he had been transformed into a ghost, which was considered a monster, he hadn't possessed any humans or monsters, but had construct his body, which was the same as when he was alive, from a multitude of corpses. As for Adalman, he didn't have any attachment to his body when he was alive, though he was rather pleased with his current figure, which had become mere bones. While Adalman's trusted confidant, who was the former Holy Knight commander, may have had some attachment and pride towards his appearance during his lifetime. It was because his appearance had the refreshing, though it was strange to say that a ghost was refreshing, facial features of a young man. But from the blue will-o-wisp that flew around him, and his pale skin, it was clear that he wasn't alive. Yeah, I'm in good mood. Guests seem to have come, Albert. He informed his confidant, the former Holy Knight Commander Albert, of the presence of invaders. He responded. I see, did they finally come? Understanding everything, Albert, who was now a Death Paladin, Ghost Holy Knight, too nodded joyfully. In the past, they had gone to conduct a purification with goodwill to prevent the outbreak of a large-scale dead spirits disaster in the battlefield in the Jura Great Forest. In doing so, Priest Adalman and 4 Holy Knights had gone together, but they had encountered an unexpected situation. When they had arrived at the battlefield's remains, a dragon zombie, carrion dragon, 3 an atrocious monster, was living there. Although they had succeeded in defeating the dragon zombie after a desperate fight, they had used up all of their strength there. There was no one to come rescue them, since they hadn't acted on the orders of the church, but based on their own convictions. Thus, their fate was sealed, but their hearts, which wished for the peace of the great Jura forest, caused a miracle. Well, rather than a miracle, it might have been a disaster for them though. Adalman's group transformed into ghost after receiving the curse of the dead, and a large amount of magic essence 4. However, with their strong willpower, Priest Adalman and Holy Knight Commander Albert succeeded in keeping their egos. Priest Adalman became a undead king, the king of ghosts. Holy Knight Commander Albert became a death paladin. And his 3 subordinates became death lords, Ghost Knight Leader, 5. The Ghost King Adalman, who had acquired the abilities of a necromancer, Dead Ruler, 6, was dominating the dead spirits in the surroundings, and stayed inside a cave. That was an old story from more than several hundred years ago. The rules of time didn't apply them, who had become undead, so the number of years that had passed couldn't be confirmed. But he noticed the birth of the new ruler of Jura Great Forest. It was natural. After the disappearance of the storm dragon Feldera, he had sent his subordinates to gather information, since he had expected the forest to become turbulent. The result, he chose to subject to the new demon lord. As things were, he had become its subordinate. Yeah. The time for us to become useful for Demon Lord Rimuru-sama, who gave us peace, has finally come. If it's in this labyrinth, I can employ the deceased as I like. Unlike during the long cave life, this place is overflowing with excitement. We must make proof of our loyalty for our God, that has bestowed us with such a wonderful environment. Yes. This Albert understands. Adalman nodded to Albert's response with a yeah. His faith had died once before. Demon Lord Rimuru was chosen as the new target of his faith. Of course Rimuru didn't know that. Rather, Rimuru was thinking, I am sorry, I don't think you guys can win or something like that, but Adalman and his group didn't know that, since they were in high spirits. Right now, they intended to bring victory to their new master. Looking at each other's faces, and nodding, Adalman was burning with motivation, Albert was also the same. And so, they began to think of countermeasures against the coming foolish invaders. The 3 people, who came from the Empire, were smoothly proceeding with the capture. After parting with Damrata, and entering the Labyrinth City, they had registered in the guild there. They had collected some information beforehand, but they had felt that the playful contents of the dungeon were mostly a heap of game elements. However, this place was where Zhen Lu Xing's sense trap shone. As for the monster's strength that he had heard about from the stories, they didn't seem to be a big deal. The problem was that the depth of the dungeon was unknown. To advance, capturing the labyrinth in one go was a no-go, as there was a limit to the amount of food that could be carried. But, such a worry. Ah, it's all right. When you find the stairs, there is a doorway to an inn. It's possible to stay in that place. So, there's no problem even if we don't bring much food. In addition, we could sell things that we don't need there, since there's merchant in that place, you know. So, it was really satisfactory. Moreover, there seems to be an item called Bracelet of Revival. It seems we are able to revive even if we die inside with this. Mark and Zhen looked doubtful when Shinji explained what he heard. How to put it? In this serious world, it was only in here that the world was full of jokes, it was a very hard to describe feeling. Since they were other Wolders too, in this world possessing an ability would garner you favorable treatment. However, it wasn't to the degree that you could do as you liked in this country. Yuaki was considerably doing his best regarding improvements to the food problem, that also dealt with the circulation of goods in the empire, but this place seemed to have surpassed that. Takoyaki 7, Okonomiyaki 8 and yakisoba 9. On top of that, recently even crepes 10 were about to be made. Stalls were crowded and lined side by side. The toilet problem was also dealt with perfectly, and the comfort of the inn was also wonderful. Should I live here? Say, shall we not return to the empire? Hey. No, sorry, it's a joke, only a joke. Don't get mad, Shinji. I am not mad, I was wondering whether to consider it seriously. I also want to live here. The 3 looked at each other. No, it's no use after all. Right? Even if we complain to Yuaki-san, the war is starting. Right? What a shame. They gave up, and let out a sigh. The town was lively, the food was delicious. In addition to its comfortableness, it was as if the city was the center of culture and amusement, where new pleasures were born, one after another. The enjoyment that they were extremely familiar with in their previous world, was a nostalgic one to them, that the Empire didn't know. It wasn't like the Empire didn't have culture nor amusement, but it wasn't as free as in this city. Above all else, the war was close to starting. For the three of them, who knew the Empire's military strength well, it was useless to think that this country would have a chance to win against the Empire. It couldn't be helped, they cut off such regrets, and challenged the labyrinth. And now, 1 week had passed after the labyrinth capture had begun. The three members of Shinji's group were relaxing in the inn inside the labyrinth. How should I say it, haven't we earned a lot this week? Though it's said that this inn only offers the minimal facilities, it's still at a moderate level. Comparatively, the inn fees are cheap, and unneeded equipment can be sold for money. Haven't we saved a lot? Mark happily asked a question. Zhen lifted his face like he was a bit interested. Shinji took out a gold coin from the pouch like he was answering the two. Well, we saved a lot. I heard that the highest capture group record here seems to be the 39th floor. It seemed they had a hard time trying to capture the 40th floor. The piece-by-piece weapons that begin to appear with empty hole seems to sell for a surprisingly high price. I wonder what it is, that hole. That kind of weapon didn't even appear until the 40th floor, right? 2 or 3 of them appeared in the 50th floor, didn't they? Yes, that's right. Actually, a treasure chest above the 30th floor seems to appear very rarely. The weapon was surely of good quality, maybe this is the reason? That's what I thought. There seems to be a secret. Even when I asked the merchant, they didn't tell me, and just smiled. Hey, that's suspicious. However, if you talk about good quality, it's this one. Look at this. While saying so, Mark took out the minus bardic, and showed it off. It shone with a beautiful silver color. A supreme gem made of mithril. It was an item obtained from the treasure chest guarded by the guardian of the 50th floor. It was a unique class weapon. It's a unique class weapon, you know? Even in the Empire, we wouldn't be able to get one so easily. Or rather, in addition to that bardic, there's that empty hole, right? What might that be? Even so, it's a pretty weapon. Though the shape is weird. This is so surprising. We are seriously trying to capture this labyrinth, we earned income, we're also enjoying this. Rather, to be able to give out a weapon like this freely, isn't this country more than what we had previously surmised? Isn't this bad? Mark and Zhen nodded at Shinji's words. There were many more things to be considered. Firstly, the 50th floor boss was strong. Among the monsters that had appeared around the Empire, not once had a monster with that class been born in these 100 years. According to the ranking of disaster class that Yuuki had established, it was an A-rank monster. As for this monster class classification, the Empire had also adopted it as the common way to refer monsters, because it was easy to understand with it. There was also the reason that, if the classification was different, then it could cause problems, since this classification system was widely used by merchants. Aside from it, in the 40th floor, there was a snake which had begun to attack with a dangerous breath. It was agreeable to say that it was an A-rank monster. It would not start attacking if the enemy was outside its breath range, though there was no escape in the narrow room. It hurled itself with its body's tough muscles. It was a monster that you couldn't be careless with. And, it was certain that the one they had met in the 50th floor was an over A-rank monster. In the 30th floor, that guy's movement were handicapped with chains and weights, but in there his movements were unrestrained. He was a dangerous boss, befitting the status as a devil amongst the demon lord's subordinates. But, he wasn't an enemy that the three couldn't defeat, though it was another story if one of them could win against the enemy alone. Surely. I'm worried that a monster of such class was guarding the 50th floor. The class of the floor boss seems to lose against the guardian class boss of every 10 floors. Isn't the strength just increasing in one level from the 40th floor to the 50th floor? Mark agreed with Shinji. After smoothly passing the 50th floor, they were now on the 55th floor. But, they didn't worry about the next boss in the 60th floor. Ghost-type monsters had appeared since the 51st floor. They are thinking that the boss was surely an undead type. Fortunately, Mark had obtained the minus bardic. As for Shinji and Zhen, they didn't have any weapons that were effective against undead. Even so, they didn't think that they would lose, though it was common sense that you shouldn't let your guard down. Oh well, even in the worst case, it seems we're not going to die, so shall we do our best without being careless? Mark and Zhen also nodded at Shinji's words. Their goal was the bottommost floor. To determine the existence or inexistence of the research facility. It was unknown how many floors there were until the bottom, so they needed to proceed with the capture without being careless. They retired that day after they had finished confirming the plan once more. And then, 3 days passed. They finally arrived at the stairs of the 59th floor after they had cleared the poison marsh and the corrosion zone. They went down those stairs, reaching the 60th floor. The floor display increased by 1 number once they went down. They finally arrived in the front of the boss room. They had gotten enough rest last night, and their preparations were done. Actually, they had arrived in front of the stairs yesterday around noon, but as a precaution they had taken a rest. It was because they had just fought desperately against 3 Death Lords, so this was an additional reason for why they hesitated to force their way through. They had the strength of the strongest class amongst ghost-type monsters, without a doubt it had strength above A rank. When they came here, they felt that the enemy's strength had risen considerably. That was why the 3 rested, to replenish their energy. For the boss after this, they thought that they wouldn't have any problems as long as they faced it calmly. The 3 nodded to one another, laid their hands on the door carefully, and then pushed it open without stopping. An intense fight began. It was truly an intense battle, or at least, that was my impression. While slumped, and watching the situation in the middle of a casual game of cards, I watched the boss fight seriously. The result was a complete victory for the Ghost King Adalman. It was a brilliant victory to the degree that I was dumbfounded. The analysis of the skills of the 3 people had been completed as well. Shinji. Estimated a rank EP, 64,000. Unique skill Master Medic 11. Method of attack, virus manipulation. Air composition manipulation, poison. Naturally he could heal as well. Mark. Estimated a rank EP, 73,000. Unique skill Thrower 12. He could throw anything. As long as it was graspable, it was possible to throw anything, even a monster. As there was no attribute, it had penetrating damage. A troublesome ability. Zhen. Estimated a rank EP, 58,000. Unique skill Observer. Instinct Evasion. Sense Danger. Sense Trap. Sense Monster. Sense Presence. Anyway, he was nimble. He was the natural enemy of labyrinths. I felt the outline was like that. I would deliciously take their abilities into account. When you only looked at their strength, you would think that they would win against Adalman. Nevertheless, that guy, Adalman, seemed to have grown greatly in the span of 1 year. Or rather, the egoless Death Lords group that didn't have any big changes in their original fighting strength, were a contrast to Adalman and Albert, who were proud of their current strength, which couldn't be compared to before. Anyway, even I didn't know it either. You were surprised, right? Actually, though it's a secret. The youngster named Arno, or something similar, trained himself in Adalman's place. So, Ramiris told me with a feeling of Ramiris's surprise was a success. And Arno was training? It wasn't the Adalman group, but Arno? As for the source of the incongruity, the Holy Knights had actually passed the 50th floor quickly, and seemed to have arrived at the 60th floor. But, they were defeated by 1 knight there. The Holy Knight, who was rumored to have been the strongest several hundred years ago. Albert, Adalman's trusted confidant, who became a Death Paladin. Has the quality of Holy Knights these days fallen? While saying that, he handled the sword techniques he had had when he was alive with his monster specs, and overwhelmed Arno, or so I was told. Wasn't the holy attribute his weakness? That's what people thought, I thought the same. The cause of the defeat of those 3 was tied to Adalman's trump card. Holy Demonic Inversion. With this skill's ability, holy attribute was reversed into demonic attribute. The target was himself, so there was no worry of there being resistance. They thought it was a joke, something like holy skeletons, but Adalman and Albert had nullified the holy attribute due to the holy demonic inversion. In the first place, On top of having resistance towards physical attacks, they also had resistance against all attribute attacks. So, against the two that had overcome their holy attribute weakness, it had become a hopeless situation. With such feelings, those three were defeated quickly, and had become light particles. By the way, there was also one more trump card, that was summoning a death dragon, ghost dragon. I was told that after having a desperate fight with Adalman's group, the dragon zombie became their companion, and seemed to have evolved. My master, Rimuru. Were you able to witness it? Our victory is for your sake. While looking at Adalman that shouting that loudly. This is, the forces that protect the 60th floor are too overpowered, right? Was my honest thought. After I calmed down, I started questioning Ramiris. With that kind of attitude, she should have something else that she was hiding. That kind of thing. I'm not hiding anything though. Ramiris, who was clearly behaving suspiciously, became restless. It was clear that she was hiding something. Just as I threatened her, that from now on cake would be prohibited, Ramiris began to talk rapidly like a machine gun. First, Arno and his group had reached the 60th floor at an early stage, and seemed to have been defeated by Adalman. And then for several months, they seemed to have been training in the 60th floor under the coaching of Albert. Adalman acquired the Holy Demonic Inversion skill from Ruminas, who sometimes came to the research institute to play. Adalman helped with various research, and with getting along with the vampire researchers, and seems to have caught Ruminas's interest. He seemed to have improved upon Ruminas's day and night inversion, and have acquired it. Of course, as a token of gratitude he taught Ruminas this skill too. And Arno came in when Adalman had acquired this skill. If you thought about it, he was a man with bad timing, but because he could receive training from the strongest knight of some 100 years ago here, it could also be said that his lucky was good. With such feelings, the 60th floor was transformed into a dangerous domain. Hey, then, Arno and his group are where now? Well, maybe because of the training, they easily defeated the boss of 70th floor, and are now in a deadlock on the 79th floor. From the 61st to the 70th floor is a golem zone, right? That's right. They were defeated easily though. The guardian of the 70th floor is the perfect reproduction of the spirit protector Colossus which I had made to guard the floor. Because I had previously broken the one that Ramiris made in the labyrinth of spirit, I created it as an apology, but I don't need it, because I have Beretta. She said, so I deployed it on the 70th floor. There was no worries of it being defeated, since it was a super heavyweight class with high defense, due to demon steel. It was a guardian of steel that wasn't affected by poisons, virus, and air quality. My confidence came from my trust for Demon Golem, Demon Lord Protector Colossus, 13, formerly Spirit Protector Colossus, though. Feldera, who do you think is stronger, Adalman or Demon Golem? Without a doubt, it's Adalman. As expected. In the past year, he seems to have greatly increased his strength. No, I think he was already strong from the start, I may have failed to notice it. Anyway, as for the Death Paladin Albert, I just noticed him for the first right now. Therefore, I was surprised by Ramiris. Okay, then starting from today, the 51st to the 60th floor will be switched with the 61st floor to the 70th floor. Understood. Just leave it to me. And so, the inside of the labyrinth was switched. Then, there was one more thing that I had in mind. By the way, the boss of the 80th floor, was it that strong? What? Well, wasn't Arno as strong as an archdemon? Or rather, isn't it that fellow, Adalman, has become as strong as an archdemon before I noticed? The shell of insect-type monsters on the 80th floor were coated with demon steel, right? After the golems with slow movement, it was arranged for there to be insect-type monsters with high-speed movement. This is... Hey! What is going on in this place? Well, you see. I keep pressing Ramiris, who behaved suspiciously, with questions, and I understood the current situation. Arno didn't seem to be in a deadlock with the 80th floor's guardian. It was with the one before it, the floor boss of the 79th floor. His progress seemed to be hindered by the insect queen, Apito. With her super speed movement, and her ultimate poison, Arno couldn't touch her with his reflexes and sword techniques which he'd trained. What the? 14. I felt like screaming. But, it's not just me, Shisa was also coaching, or something similar, the insects were trained by him, you know. Yo, you fool. Did you betray me? Because, it's unfair if only Shisu has that face saying that you're unrelated. Gunununu, 15. It seemed Feldera did the same thing. It might have been my mistake to have entrusted the labyrinth to these two. Having achieved an abnormal evolution, the insect Quiepito seemed to be included in the 10 strongest individuals in this labyrinth. Having evolved into humanoid form, her insect-like appearance from before was gone. Getting a beautiful form. It was a result of the abnormal evolution. And so, the strongest individuals in this labyrinth. There was a chance that they had the combat power of executive class. I didn't want to know, but various dragons seemed to have evolved to Dragon King class. It had become that there were 4 Dragon Kings. In addition, Guardian of the 90th floor, 9-head beast Kumara 16. Guardian of the 80th floor, Insect Kaiser Zegan 17. Floor boss of the 79th floor, Insect Queen Apito 18. Guardian of the 60th floor, Ghost King Adelman. Vanguard of the 60th floor, Death Paladin Albert. Also, Guardian of the 50th floor, Gozairl and Mazurl. Frankly, excluding Gozairl and Mazurl, there's still 9 people rather, should it be 9 being, 19 which were equal in strength. The Dragon Kings are Ramiris's subordinate, but the remaining 7 people seem to be my subordinates. Though I thought that Gozairl and Mazurl were better off as Ramiris's subordinate. The 2 would do anything in gratitude for becoming Ramiris's subordinates, and wished to continue to serve under me. Hence, they could use the Bracelet of Revival many times. Incidentally, without me knowing, they had become emotionally attached to it. Anyway, I would give a proper order to these guardians so they don't raise their hands, except against the ones who invade the labyrinth. Otherwise, it would be impossible for an ordinary person to travel in the labyrinth. It was somewhat sad, it had become a situation where you couldn't challenge the labyrinth without having several demon lords. Thus, during the observation of the 3 invaders, I noticed the current, unexpected, condition of the labyrinth. Oh well, it was good to become strong, but I would be uneasy if it evolved beyond my imagination. It might be the bad habit of a timid person. I praised Adelman for his splendid deed, and I told him that the floor was changed as a reward. He was considerably moved, and said that this was a mark of his wish to be useful to me in the future. Well, I wished him to do his best. What I noted next was that, the 3 intruders seemed to have gone back without invading again. They may have had some objective, though they might have grown to fear the overwhelming power of the Death Paladin Albert. Anyway, as for the Death Dragon that waited in the rear, there really was no need to move it. It seemed they thought that it was useless even if they challenged it many times. I felt like I wanted to obtain a bit more information, though it might not have been a problem. After all, it would eventually arrive. With such feelings, the curtain closed on the current riot. 1 BTW The kanji for his title is Shiryu-ou. Mean Ghost / Dead Spirit / Deceased Soul King. 2. Shiryu Hijiri Kishi, Desuperaden. 3. Funiku Ryu, Dragon Zombie, Funiku equals rotten flesh. 4. Should I keep using magic power or changing them into magic essence / ether / mana as it's actually different with Marioku? Which is Mamoto in the environment / surroundings, while Marioku is inside living being. Magic essence more correct in the context of the line. 5. Shiryu Kishijo, Disurodo. 6. Shiryu Shiaisha, Nakuraman Sa. Dead / ghost / dead spirit ruler. 7 image. 8 image. 9 image. 10 image. 11 Iriushi. Master of medical treatment so medic master. 12 Tout Kisha. The one who throws thing. 13, Mushigo Gyuzo, Demon Gormyu. 14 Dondekdeo. 15 SFX for anger, seething. 16 Kyoto Kumara. It's a Hydra, right? Right? XD. 17, ch/mushi kauti, insekuto kaiza, zijin. Emperor or Kaiser. 18, mushi yu, insekuto kun, apito. 19 Rimuru first use, Mei, a counter for people, then he changed into, Tai, a counter for humanoid beings. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 147, The Empire That Start to Move. The Empire That Start to Move. The door opened with a loud noise. 3 people entered the room. Yuuki took his eyes off from the document he was reading. Yo, welcome back. He greeted the 3. But Yuuki-san, it was impossible. The bottom zone was extremely hard. Yeah, it went well until the 50th floor. But, after the 55th floor, Death Knights were roaming together in a platoon. I think this would be hard for ordinary knight ranks. Well, the problem started from the 59th floor though. That was dangerous. They began to speak vigorously. Maybe it was because they were excited, they didn't mind how they looked anymore. If you saw the 3's clothes, the ripped chainmail was broken in some parts. Just by looking at it there was no doubt that it was due to a fierce battle. The story of the 3 continued. The boss of that floor was a commander rank Death Knight Death Lord, but 3 of them appeared at the same time, you know. Moreover, they were accompanied by 5 Death Knights each, you see. That was horrible. Maybe we were relaxed until the 50th floor. The boss monster with a cow-like face had a strength comparable to an rank. Anyway, to have such monsters guarding it, there seems to be something in that labyrinth. Then, did you guys give up at the 59th floor? No, we somehow managed to defeated the 3 sets of Death Knights and their commanders. But well, the guardian of the 60th floor seems to be a named boss. It was absurdly strong, you know. Because we were almost defeated by the numbers on the 59th floor, we were already prepared for a battle of attrition on the 60th floor though. The result was our defeat by a single humanoid-type monster. It clearly had abnormal strength, to the point of being the superior version of a Death Knight. That was impossible. Even if we try it many times, we will lose. When the 3 talked to such an extent, Yuuki sat on a chair, and settled down a bit. He drank the served tea, and took a breath. Yuuki thought that to some degree his expectation was correct. Then, there seemed to be something over there. He questioned the exhausted trio. Apparently, the 3 seemed to have just left the town by foot after being defeated at the 60th floor. They regrouped with Damrata, who waited at the outskirts of the town, and immediately returned with transfer magic. This was because they feared a pursuit. They heard that the highest record for the labyrinth was the 39th floor and there seemed to be a stalemate against the waiting boss of the 40th floor before they had challenged it. Meanwhile, they thought that they certainly stood out by advancing and establishing new records right off the bat. They said that they realized their mission had failed, and they withdrew when they confirmed existence of strong individual guarding the place without re-challenging the labyrinth. After some considering there's no doubt. There should be some kind of facility beyond that place. The size of the labyrinth was quite something. I think it was expanded through some kind of magic though, but it didn't seem to be an artificial structure. In the first place, that place didn't seem to have something like underground ruins originally, either. In that case, it was a mystery how they secured a place that wide. Only in that floor, the defense was abnormally severe. No matter how you look at it, they're guarding something. Not only the knight that defeated us, there was a skeleton magician, and ghost dragon later on. I think that the forces there were very different than on the other floors. Right? You could laugh but probably, if all the monsters up to the 59th floor fought against the monster of the 60th floor, those guys from the 60th floor would win. Shinji and Zhen nodded in agreement with Mark's thought. They say that it had such an overwhelming presence. Yuuki had no doubt that the floors until the 50th floor were originally the labyrinth sections for tourist attraction purposes, while the 51st to the 60th floors and further, were a restricted secure area. After that, they ate a light meal, and he received the report in calm, eased state. It didn't seem that they were able to enter Tempest, but they seemed to have been able to gather information from the open-hearted adventurers in the labyrinth town. They summarized such information, and reported it, as well as all sorts of things they had obtained their spoils of war. They got a high-quality magic crystal from a monster. They were able to get some quality equipment from the treasure chest, which could be located in a room inside the labyrinth, or from the floor boss, and so on. Each one of them were rare class, while the bardic that Mark had was unique class. They could sense that to gather so many people, they needed to set up an unthinkable amount of money and labor. Meanwhile, there was some worrying information. That is, there is a city on a certain floor inside the dungeon, underground labyrinth. Or so they say. As expected, it doesn't seem to be a mistake. Yeah. I think it must be. It is. The point though, is that we cannot pass the 60th floor. At least, because he judged it to be absolutely impossible with only his group, Shinji reported it obediently. It was on a level that saving face was of no use, since the boss was just too strong. Well, by the way, to what extent did you feel that boss's strength? Can you compare it with people that belong to the Imperial Guard Army, to be specific? Shinji and the two were lost in thought at Yuuki's question. Though it was called the Imperial Guard Army, in the army there were people like Shinji and his group, who weren't interested in the rank-deciding battle. They were indebted to Yuuki in various ways after they had come to this world, and had helped under his instructions in various ways. Since they were not interested in being in the top 100, they didn't participate in the rank-deciding battle seriously either. Furthermore, since the corps commander had been replaced by Yuuki, they had purposefully transferred from their original armored corps to the mixed army corps that Yuuki led as corps commander. In this corps, there was no need to participate in the useless rank-deciding battle. There was a number of people that existed among them that thought like other worlders. They weren't given a large responsibility, and they didn't show off their power. They were people that lived suitably. Because the abilities of such people were not clear, it was a mystery whether the Imperial Guard Army was really the strongest group though. But, on paper, there was no mistake that this group was the strongest group in the Empire. Well, at least, around the top 50th rank. I think those guys subordinate aren't worth considering. In the end, it was just that one night, right? That night, we weren't able to touch him, even with the three of us, you know. Right. People in the top 30th rank might fight evenly against the knight. Which reminds me, wasn't there an Archdemon subjugation troop dispatched before the construction? That time, I participated as the campaign's doctor. Ah, the Lakeshore died in Scarlet, Incident 1? Is it true, Shinji was a survivor of that incident? I was lucky to survive. The Lakeshore died in Scarlet incident was one of abominable incidents that had occurred in the Empire territory. A vassal state, adjacent to the beautiful lake, revolted against the Empire, and shouted for independence. That time, the king of that vassal state took a certain measure, since his state was inferior in war forces to Empire. That was, the secret art of demon summoning, which could be considered taboo. The king gave an order to summon the strongest demon that would obey him, and the imperial court magician answered the order. Even if they opposed the Empire, that small country population didn't even reach 10,000 people, so there should be no chances of victory for them, but there was a reason why the king suddenly declared his country's independence. A noble from the Empire desired for the princess, his only daughter. In the Empire, which had become powerful, it was impossible for the emperor to grasp the movements of such a small country. The Margrave, who was entrusted to rule the area, borrowed the emperor's authority, and performed atrocities. Such a spectacle was a common occurrence in the Empire. The Archdemon appeared from the demon summoning, then destroyed that small country. The demon's desire was that kingdom's princess. The imperial court magician, whose mind began to break the instant he saw the demon, presented the princess in response to the demon's demand. The demon sprouted a wicked smile, and possessed the princess' body. It accomplished embodiment through the princess too. The king went into a rage. However, that anger was immediately replaced by fear as the demon's rampage began. In the end, a report that the small country was destroyed reached the Empire, and the demon's subjugation was decided. As if their initial response was late by a step, that place would become the location where the second Guy Crimson was born. The beautiful lake was dyed with the blood of that small country's populace, and the water changed into a red color. Even in the several hundred years of the empire's history, this detestable incident could be called the worst that had ever happened. Well, about the main issue in hand. I only saw its appearance during the fight at that time though. I felt the 60th floor boss was about the same as the Archdemon. What? Such thing as an Archdemon? It's on a level that we can't defeat, you know. Is it really the same? The Armored Corps, which had branches throughout the entirety of the Empire's territory, solved the Lakeshore Dyed in Scarlet incident. Or so it was the official story. However, Shinji, who was there, saw that a few knights defeated the Archdemon, which the troops couldn't fight, from afar. He didn't intend to mention it, but he thought that they were probably people who belonged to the Imperial Guard army now. Therefore, because of it he had lost his interest in the rank-deciding battle. He really felt that they lived in a different world. Ah, they might be like this. It would be great if a machine to check the enemy's power can be developed, though it would probably have no significance. That knight seemed to be strong since he was a high-level swordsman. The later magician-like skeleton had an intimidating air that was comparable to an Archdemon. Shinji's words didn't contain doubt, and were full of his true feelings. Then, it can't be helped that we lost. In addition to those powerful two, there was a dragon, right? It's a bit too cruel. The balance is too difficult, that labyrinth. Until the 50th floor the balance was good though. As expected, if you consider what lies on the other side, there must be a town after that place. Receiving the three's report, Yuuki pondered. It wasn't an accurate conclusion since he didn't see it with his own eyes, but as there seemed to be a floor that was guarded by an undead transformed dragon, and two beings with an Archdemon class. It seemed they couldn't reach the targeted research facilities if they didn't pass that place. Oh well, it can't be dealt with ordinary means, as expected. Yuuki could go and break through the labyrinth himself, but he would be noticed immediately by Rimuru and his group. He didn't participate in the labyrinth simply because they were cautious about his movements. However, Yuuki wanted to achieve the goal of the labyrinth's capture somehow. He may ignore it, but Yuuki had a hunch that some problems were going to occur later. Yuuki pondered for a while. Thank you, you guys should have a good rest. That's right, if you want to examine the obtained equipment in detail. You guys should visit the Imperial Court Magician, Gadraushi 3. Shinji, you should greet your master for the first time in a while as well, right? Also, you guys may sell the unnecessary things, since the supplies section will purchase it. He thanked the three people, and called out to them. The three, who remembered that they were tired with his words, showed delighted expressions, thanked Yuuki, and left the room. The seeds were scattered. It might have been too early to spread this matter to the other sections. Probably, the Empire would move. Yuuki thought as much, and quietly sprouted a smile. After the three left Yuuki's room, they went to the supplies section to sell magic crystals and unused equipment. Their reconnaissance ended in failure, but they were able to get a considerable income in a short amount of time. Their salaries, provided by the army, were more than the average income of a commoner, but not to the extent where they could live luxuriously. On the other hand, to leave the army and become independent, the conditions in this world were very severe. Being able to live a steady life was already attractive. Hey, where did you guys obtain this magic crystal? This is something hardly seen recently, isn't this a high-quality one? The equipment here is great too. It's a weapon made with pure demon steel. Though I'm bothered by this whole thing. Ha ha ha, where it was obtained is a secret. Please don't ask again. After having such an exchange, they had a good rest in their respective rooms that day. The forced march had ended, their bodies and minds might have been dead tired. When Shinji woke up, it was the evening of the next day. Shinji, who woke up, contacted the other two. Zhen was up, but it seemed like Mark was still sleeping. Actually, his fatigue would be great for sure, since Mark mostly played an active role. The three met, and decided to have dinner. In the Empire's capital, the three had a meal at a high-class restaurant. It had been a while since they had last had such a luxury. Yuuki didn't tell them to hand over the spoils, and was happy to give everything to Shinji and his colleagues. When permission to plunder is not given, the spoils obtained in the middle of a military campaign belonged to the military. In this case, they couldn't complain, even in the worst case where everything was taken away. Well, in most cases. However, if all things and money obtained were taken away, we might seriously think about migrating away, right? The two agreed with Shinji's remark. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 100,000 yen. The market price was similar in the empire. The gold coins in the market were issued by the Dwarf Kingdom. The quality was standardized as the common gold coin. They could use the original empire gold coin, but there would be an inspection of the money by the money changer, and the fee was larger too. Therefore, the majority of transactions were using the gold coins made by the Dwarf Kingdom. The gold coins made by the Dwarf Kingdom were inscribed with magic. Any counterfeit money would be exposed immediately. If by chance, a counterfeit was exposed, it would result with a death penalty. Because of that, there were only a few idiots that counterfeited money in the present. The gold coins that Shinji's group obtained from the Labyrinth City, which was the satellite city of the monster's country Tempest, were without doubt made by the Dwarf Kingdom. It could be used inside the empire without any problems. The army had an annual salary system. The promotion was also included, calculated, and collected the next year. However, taking in consideration the people who didn't have the money on hand, they had devised a system where they gave out daily allowances from the reserve funds. For an ordinary soldier, it was 10 gold coins. Their annual salary was equivalent to 1 million yen. Because the army took care of the life necessities, food, clothing and shelter, it was a large sum of money for poor people. The gold coins that they obtained were altogether more than 100 pieces. Mark and Zhen's rank were first lieutenant. Because Shinji had the qualification as an army doctor, his command right was 2 ranks higher, he was a major. Because other worlders are given preferential treatment, even at the lowest they will receive treatment as second lieutenants. Of course, the salary provided by the empire in a year was more than for an ordinary soldier. But, even so, it was around 5,100 pieces of gold coins. The amount of money they had earned during this short-term mission was greater than their annual salaries. Not to mention that the unique class equipment and such were things that they couldn't get throughout their lifetimes unless they paid hefty sums for it. Being unable to stomach Damrata's lavish lifestyle was the biggest reason Mark hated him. In short, it was jealousy, there was no other meaning. Mark didn't like Damrata, whom he didn't know, who was just living a good life, while he, himself, was personally just a dog of the army. In addition, he was disgusted with himself, who thought about such things, and took out his anger more strongly on Damrata. Shinji could understand Mark's feelings, but he could satisfy himself with only the salary he received as an army doctor. If he said something careless word, it would disturb Mark's mood. They were thinking about something based off the information that they were able to get in this mission. That, even if they didn't particularly cling to the military, the 3 of them could live together in the Labyrinth City, couldn't they? Was something like that. Sure, the empire was the leading force in culture and technology. It was an excellent capital. The food was delicious, and the living conditions were comfortable too. As long as they had money, they were able to enjoy a fulfilling life comparable to their former world. But, they were more or less civil employees. They might be given a dangerous mission, and so they couldn't be careless. In that regard, that dungeon was very satisfying. After all, they didn't have to worry about dying. They were half in doubt, but because they had experienced it themselves, they had no choice but to believe it. If they didn't have to worry about dying, wasn't it better for them to live interestingly over there? It was normal to think so. Even if there was money, there was no meaning in it if there was no entertainment. Over there was a place called the Colosseum, and it seemed it could be used freely on its day off. Various sports games, like soccer and baseball, were played over there, and they had already investigated that the adventurer citizens enjoyed it. About the taste of the food, it was equal to Empire. Though it was equal, it had a nostalgic taste that couldn't be reproduced by the people of this world, and it attracted their hearts as people from Earth. To be frank, it was because they were indebted to Yuuki that they didn't have feel like to changing sides. When the war begun, they would be considered deserters, but fortunately right now was a peaceful time. If it was now, it would be easy to retire from duty, and leave the army. The problem is the war, right? Mark muttered. It was the reason they couldn't decide. That was caused by the problem he just stated. War would certainly begin. Otherwise, they would have left this country long ago, and would have moved to the Labyrinth City. Which side do you think will win? Just saying, what will we do if we receive an order to attack that city? The three looked at each other. There was a feeling of unpleasantness in attacking that city they liked, right after they had stayed there for a while. But they, judging from the strength of the boss inside that labyrinth, expected that the strength of the strongest person in Monster's country Tempest would be unthinkable. If you think about it, normally you would think that the guardians that protected the research facilities were strong, right? But, the people that belong to that country's army are monsters, right? If so, the guardians in the labyrinth aren't the strongest, right? I think the same. At least, the demon lord Rimuru might be an exception. In the past, a city seemed to have been annihilated by a wicked dragon named Feldera. Actually, a similar thing seemed to have happened. I think that an archdemon is equal to a tactical nuclear weapon in Earth. That's right. The war is about numbers, even if several of that boss appear it will be useless. With our class, we can't fight against 10 people, I think it's meaningless. The three talked till late that day, but in the end the talk wasn't settled. At least, they had only decided to leave the army before the war began, and parted on that day. In the office where a splendid desk was placed, a man with one eye was sitting in a high-class chair. His left eye was covered with an eye patch, his appearance was of a skinny man around 40. His name was Calgurio. He was the corps commander of the armored corps that boasted of the greatest power in the empire. On the desk in front of him, a few magic crystals were placed. They were high-quality magic crystals, which had high purity and would become sources of magic energy. In his hand was a sword. It was made with high-quality demon steel, and the skill with which it was made could be grasped as a high level. It was a splendid sword, equal to the ones which the best craftsmen of the Dwarf Kingdom forged. It was said that the supplies department purchased it, but it had a clear distinction from the items sold within the empire. A subordinate of a high-rank noble who was on familiar terms with Calgurio got his hands on supplies department, and reported if there was an outstanding item. That was the case this time. Many nobles came over with indecent smiles, and reported it to Calgurio. Calgurio's origin was as a low-rank noble. The high-rank nobles would not bore themselves to talk to him if he was a civil employee. Those nobles were looking down on Calgurio, but they knew how to be courteous towards the head of a corps of the greatest faction. Thus, their relations were equal. It seems to be impossible to harvest magic crystals of this purity from monsters that generated naturally, so they say. If we want to aim for a stable supply, we should secure the place that produced this magic crystal, like that. They demanded of Calgurio in the report. There was no thing as a high-rank noble that moved while disregarding their own profit. There was no such thing as, they reported it with good intent, or something like that. There was another story that he worried about. It was about the sword that Calgurio held in his hand. Many times this unusual item seems to have a mysterious effect. Such an exaggerated thing was said when he came to buy it. If it was examined, it would likely strengthen the Empire's army. In the end, it was sold at 100 gold coins due to such a reason, but surely there was something that Calgurio was worried about. There was a hole in the sword. Did the hole have any meaning? Calgurio couldn't decide. Therefore, he handed the sword over to the technical group after he was troubled. If it was them, there would be some discoveries. When the result was brought a few days later to Calgurio, he was surprised, but determined. Because the sword attracted the best craftsmen among them, he noticed it. Also, the origin of the sword was from inside a dungeon that belonged to a certain country, and when he learned of that, Calgurio drafted a strategy inside his mind. He was thinking while smiling thinly. When the time came, he must never allow anyone to have a head start. And, despite having a chance to obtain such important information, he thought that his colleagues were pitiful to not notice this. After all, this fellow was a foolish upstart. His head didn't stop thinking while sneering at his colleague. How much could he enjoy the maximum profit if he did it? He was thinking about the opportunity to apply the initiation of the military campaign to the Emperor while thinking about it deeply. Author's note. By Calgurio's action, the Empire began to move. It wasn't necessary to write it, but it was for the time being. In case Clayman goes for the labyrinth capture, can he capture the former 60th floor? The probability is low. He would surely lose if he took on those three, Guro, Magician, Knight and Dragon, at the same time. 1. aka Nisomaru Koan, Jiken. 2. BTW embodiments kanji is Juniku, which mean getting a body/physical form, incarnation. 3. Raushi, old master/old teacher/sage. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 148, A Decision Made Too Late. A Decision Made Too Late. A big thanks to Guro-san and co for editing my work. In a spacious and well-lit, comfortable room. An old man Gadra the Imperial Court Mage invited his three guests to the room. He showed them the chair. Whilst feeling obliged, the three sat on the chair as suggested by the strict mage. Gadra watched the three, and chuckled. Although he have became a full-fledged soldier, his disciple's nervousness towards him was still amusing. He knew that his disciple Shinji and his friends will come visiting him from a prior contact. And, the investigation on the equipments that entrusted to him has also ended. However, he's still pondering whether he should inform them honestly or not. The equipment's astounding performance was something that he should be astonished. Anyway, first of all he decided to return the bardic and the bracelet which in his hand to Shinji and held it out. Shinji received the equipments which Gadra held out, and hand over the bardic to his friend with large build, mark. Then, he tucked away the bracelet into his pocket. At the same time after it's over. So, Shisho, this bracelet, do you have any ideas what this bracelet is? Out of curiosity, he asked the main question. The effect of its automatic revival after the wearer died is only possible in a specific place. You wouldn't found a magic item like this that possessed such ability, no matter how many records were checked. However, it's not like there's nothing that comes to mind. Impatient as usual I see. Well, I can't criticize others either. I will say the conclusion, it can't be appraised with magic. I let the technology department to examine the other two. But, I'm afraid that the mystery of this bracelet will not be solved. Even so, it's not like there's nothing that comes to mind. So, the question is. You lot, where was this bracelet obtained from? What is the place called? And so, in order to ascertain that, Gadra asked a question in return. Gadra didn't hear about the origins of this bracelet. He only received a request saying to examine the effects of the bracelet. 3 bracelets were handed to him and he was asked to check what kind of ability it has. He only heard a bit detail of it at the time. The effect of automatic revival is possible only in a specific limited location or some unthinkable thing like that. When Shinji handed the bracelet, he said that he wanted Gadra to examine it without having any strange prejudice, but Gadra didn't heard the story in detail. The result, it's impossible to be analyzed by magic. Due to its indefinite change of the spirit's wave, every interferences by magic were obstructed. Because the wave of all attributes was intermingled with each other complicatedly, it's in a state which the specific pattern couldn't be calculated. Therefore, Gadra gave up and ended up asking the technology department to deal with it. Asking the technology department is like admitting he lost and it hurt his pride, but Gadra's personality was to prioritize gain over pride. While feeling frustrated too, he handed the remaining 2 bracelets over requesting an investigation. The results aren't out yet. I've tried appraised it myself with magic, but I failed. I couldn't find any clues. I thought the failure was due to my lack of ability, but even Shisho too. The place is the west side of the empire, it's the opposite end, the other side of the Jura Great Forest, or referred to as west side of the forest. It's the satellite city of the emerging country governed by the Demon Lord, called Monsters Country Tempest. In that city, or at the underground dungeon, the bracelet is an item that can be purchased upon entry into the multi-layered underground structure. Then, as they sold it to us, they've also given us explanation about the labyrinth. We were skeptical at first, but we personally experienced it with our body. Without a doubt, it has effect to revive even if we died. Hoha, labyrinth, is it? Then, can this bracelet be used multiple times? No, once you die it will become light particles and disappears. Well, in this case, you will be outside the labyrinth, and you need to enter again. When you paid the fee, it seems you have to buy it again. So this dungeon collects admission fees? Or rather, anyone can enter. Yeah, that's right. Apparently, the Demon Lord Rimuru seems to run it as a tourist attraction. What, Demon Lord, huh? Gadra was rendered speechless by Shinji's explanation. If you think about it, this is too terrible a conversation. A Demon Lord is referred as an enemy of humanity. The Demon Lord is an absolute existence, and it's wise to go on basis of mutual non-aggression. The reason why the Demon Lord rule over an affluent territory is to nullify a Demon Lord's reason and ambition for the territories of other countries. Due to this, Gadra is on the opposition position regarding the Empire's ambition to expand towards the west side. 1 year ago, the Pharma's kingdom perished for incurring the Demon Lord's wrath. While the people weren't directly harmed, but the king suffered a gruesome end, and the country perished too. With this incident as the cue, there seemed to be some kind of movements among the Demon Lords. As for the newly created 8-star Demon Lords, Octogram, notification was sent to humanity. There are 4 Demon Lords whom name is known widely. Guy, Mirim, Leon, and the one in the topic Rimuru. Gadra didn't know what the Western nation thought about this, but he believed that it was dangerous move to angered Rimuru as he's a Demon Lord. His name was known because he takes too many intensive actions. And the important thing is, even though Clayman, who was one of the former 10 great Demon Lords, is gone, the newcomer Rimuru has left quite the impression. As indicated by that, the west side has an existence that more frightening than Clayman, so is the point. Besides, it's to the point where there's no survivor amongst the 10,000 people that partook in Pharma's military campaign. In the case of an ordinary war, when the casualties were over 30%, it would mean this campaign is a failure. At that point, they would need to surrender. They thought that their life will not be taken if they surrendered because of the rumored personality of the Demon Lord, but the result was a massacre. They were annihilated without chance to surrender? Or was it because of the subordinates' reckless action? But, the most frightening thing above all might be his ability of impregnable defense that enclosed them and gave them no chance to escape. The army well over 10,000, if there's no one survived, it's not an event that common sense can be applied to. It might be possible if a large-scale spell was invoked, enclosing the whole army, with a speed that didn't allow them to escape, if it's nuclear strike magic. When using that large-scale magic, it would be a miracle if the opponent haven't deploy any defense barriers while the magic power for casting such great magic was being gathered. If such element cleared all the requirement, it might not be impossible for Gadra either. Though, this is all very unlikely. Above all, the effects on the natural environment due to terraforming via nuclear strike magic has not been confirmed. He wouldn't kill the runaway enemies by some kind of unknown attack nor command a large number of subordinates to lock down the enemy and annihilated them. It's frightening, that's how he honestly feel. To especially wage war against such opponent. Truth to be told, the higher-ups of the military wouldn't be able to avoid incompetent criticism. I should probably remonstrate to the Emperor about this, huh? With such a thought, he let out a depressed sigh. After a change of mood, he decided to answer his disciple, Shinji's question. Well, it's about the Demon Lords. Do you guys know how many Demon Lords there are? Yes, is it 8 people, right? Isn't it 10 people? No, shouldn't it be 11 people now? Mark. They made some changes last year. Gadra sighed, and began his explanation. Those idiots civilian employees' bad habit, they can't even do an intelligence gathering, I can see them be the first to die. There are 8 Demon Lords. They refer to themselves as the 8-star Demon Lords. It may mean that they have ability that compared to a star. In fact, it's said that the newbie, Rimuru alone has the strength to match an army. The higher-ups of the military seem to think this remark about Rimuru is just boasting, but I personally think it's the truth. But, this time let's put this aside. Among them, one of the Demon Lords is called, the Fairy of the Labyrinth. What do you think about this? These words made the three held their breaths. Timidly, Shinji stated his thought. Labyrinth. As in dungeons, 1. So he said. Nodding gravely, Gadra took out a copy of a book, and showed it to the trio. In the All-Gracia Republic on the west side, there's a dungeon known as Dwelling of the Spirits. It's said that the labyrinth expands in underground or in the air in this world, but the truth is different. In a sense this is correct, yet also wrong. According to the books, the Dwelling of the Spirits not only houses spirits, but it's also the resident of their queen whose body changed from a spirit into a fairy. This queen is one of the demon lords, the one known as the Fairy of the Labyrinth. Gadra's words weighed heavily on the trio. In addition, the entrance to the labyrinth seems to be only located in the Olg National Park, but has now vanished. Not long after that, the demon lord Rimuru has identified himself. Then, an underground labyrinth, dungeon, was opened to the public after a few months later. So he continued. By now, he's convinced there's no mistake. As for Shinji and his friends, they can't utter a denial. Shisho, did you realize that? He barely had a reply. Gadra laughed maliciously. Naturally. You idiot, collecting information is the fundamental of everything you know. For war, and also economy. If a person aspire to pursue magic, it's all the more. Diligence is not enough. And also, one more thing. You lot were defeated by such opponent, it's as expected. Shisho, why it's like that? I've asked you Akidano. About where and what you lot doing. At that point when the answer come, it's good as not to decide anything. Haha, I'm very sorry. Shinji was ashamed, his face dyed red. As a magician, his master had told him many times how inadequate was his information collecting, he felt ashamed that he wasn't able to realize it till someone pointed it out. But, it's certainly a bit harsh to compare the crafty Gadra who already lived for many years in this world with Shinji who's lacking in sense of tension due to being raised in Japan. Anyways, Shinji and Co using this opportunity for some serious reflection as well, the information about the 60th floor guardian was obtained. There's a story of a noble-minded priest accompanied by a great holy knight from a long time ago too. Such people were turned into devil, it's story that was agreeable even if it's said that their threat can be compared to archdemon. I don't know whether this the truth or a lie, in this book. The blade of the holy knight Albert, could cut even an archdemon. So it was written. I'm afraid he was a master of formidable sword. Hearing his master words, Shinji is fed up. If that's so, I can't possibly win. That was his state of mind. Since he was uncertain, it can't be helped, if he couldn't revive he would definitely be dead. In the future, in order to avoid exposing his comrades to unexpected dangers, he would definitely collect more detailed information, sworn Shinji. However, this decision was made a bit too late. That's because, they have already been caught up in a new crisis. The door of Gadra, the Imperial Court Magician's room opened, and several soldiers entered. The sudden turn of events shocked Shinji and Co. But, the situation has begun to proceed, and due to Shinji and Co.'s late decision, they have lost the chance to escape from the Empire. Underscore 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 un. One first labyrinth in katakana then labyrinth in kanji. This line is lost in translation. To the kanji say which can mean 1000 years ago or a long time ago. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 149, Night Before the War Begin. Night before the war began. An imperial conference was about to begin in front of the emperor. The situation now was different from the time of peace. Tension spread among the civil officers that sat in a row, much less the officers that participated. People that didn't have any relation to the conference didn't come near the big conference room, as if they had felt the atmosphere there. Everyone felt that this time, the conference was different from a usual one. When the arrival of Emperor was announced, everybody lowered their head at once. The Union Emperor, Ludra Nam Ol Nazca. The top of Nascanamria Mulmaria Eastern Alliance Union Empire, the strongest country. To ensure that his true disposition would not be known to others, his figure was hidden behind the blinds, and could not be seen. To make him the one and only, supreme ruler. There were only a few people who could give their opinion to the emperor. In the conference room, there were a little less than 100 people. The leader of each corps, and their aides. The elites of the guard army were sitting in a row. The ministers that conducted the government of the country, and grand noble houses that were the center of the country. All distinguished faces gathered and lowered their heads. When the emperor glanced at the gathered people from the other side of the blinds, he took a seat with an uninterested mood. The prime minister took it for a sign and signaled to everyone with his eyes. Everyone understood it, and simultaneously, words of salutation resounded, causing the large room to tremble. The emperor commanded with one hand. Enough with the stiff formalities. We don't desire such things. Just start. The emperor ordered the start of the conference. Thus, the grand conference that would decide the start of the war, that would be carved in history, began. First, what was the reason to start the war? It was a silly question. They thought it was because the emperor wanted it. Was that possible? The opinions was greatly divided. There was someone who advocated a careful basis, and there was someone who insisted on invading directly from the front. The civil officers insisted that they should begin with diplomatic negotiations such as threats and other tactics. Starting the war was the emperor's intention, there was no place to raise an objection. If there was someone that said the preparation was lacking and the chance of winning was low, that person would receive criticism of being called an incompetent who could not do any preparations properly. Anyway, not only had their preparations been completed, there were people who were confident in their absolute military force. There was no one who would make such an assertion be known. However, with all due respect, Your Majesty, I'm against it. One person reported that he was against the war. Gadra, the imperial court magician. He was the person that was called the empire's great magician. Gadra spoke out, without fear of the emperor, and told the emperor his own thoughts. I think that there should be no problem if we only attacked the west side. However, the wicked dragon Feldera is in the Jura Great Forest. Also, it's the territory ruled by the demon Lord Remuru who made his name widely known recently. It seems likely that the wicked/evil dragon has joined forces with demon Lord Remuru. To act of mutual non-aggression is the usual course against a demon lord. It's a different story if it is the other party that starts it though. Was there any kind of meddling from this side? Some of the civil officials nodded in agreement with Gadra's opinion, but... You fool! Have you become a coward, Raushi? If it's us, the Empire's strongest magic beast corps, we can handle someone like a demon lord, you know. What insolence! Does Gadra Dano intend to go against the Emperor's thoughts? Ha ha ha, Raushi Dano. You have grown old. Your magic knowledge is the Empire's treasure. Although you have cooperated in the development of the new type magic weapon of our armored corps, I cannot let that remark go. Are you a coward? Gadra was bathed in sneers from both the military authorities and the nobles. Amongst the ministers, that only thought about the imagined profits they would get, was one person who rolled his eyes and didn't seem to be amused from Gadra, who objected the war. You lot, do you understand? That wicked dragon is the strongest species in this world that rules over storms, you know. Raushi, I don't understand. The Empire army is different from before. We have learned the knowledge of various places of the many different worlds, the thing called science. We have obtained the new technology system which is called magic science. With this new technology, our military force has increased its power dozens of times from the first generation. Isn't it because of outdated magicians like you, even now, you still have a bitter experience of having your own corps dissolved? Calgurio, the commander of Armored Corps, argued against Gadra's words. In fact, the magic corps that was once called one of the Empire's three great corps was dissolved. Nowadays any capable person will get assigned to technology department or other department. The reason there was no movement from the Empire in these few decades, was because a military reorganization had happened and given birth to the new three great corps. Armored Corps, the corps where science and technology of the different world fused as magic technology. The Empire's corps with the largest size, the number of total soldiers that could be mobilized exceeded 2 million. However, in reality the number of soldiers who could participate immediately in the military deployments is 1 million, since some of the forces were on standby in every place in the Empire. Even so, the scale of the corps could be said as abnormal. It was arranged to select the best war potential for this time. As for the breakdown: Armored Remodeled Legion. Legion of soldiers who received magic remodeling by magic and technology of the different world. The individual ability increases and has ability considerable to BA ranks. Even at the lowest, the corps consisted of people stronger than C and rank. Number of soldiers affiliated, 700,000 people. It's the star unit that was called the Empire Main Force. Magic Tank Division. Magic Tank 4.000 unit. Number of soldiers affiliated, 200,000 people. The Empire's secret weapon, piloted by 5 people. The main armament is magic cannon. Optimized by other worlds' technology, the cannon amplifies magic and fires it. Aerial Fighter Legion. Airship 400 aircraft. Number of soldiers affiliated, 100,000 people. -1 aircraft can be boarded up to 400 people. To operate it, needs about 50 staff. The other personnel is engaged in bombardment relations. It's useful as transportation means. It could be said that there's no concept of air supremacy in this era. While the enemy is caught unprepared, it's a threat that can become a transport for a large-scale military deployment. A lot of magic reinforcement cannons were installed on the airship. Many members of former Magic Corps were affiliated with this corps. The above was the actual force of the Armored Corps. In the Armored Corps, half of the affiliated member were given a forced magic remodeling. The degree of the remodeling fluctuated suitably, but everyone's ability increased greatly, although there was some degree of differences. It's the same with the soldiers standing by in various places in the Empire. Everyone had strength above a certain level. It overwhelms even the union of other countries in both quality and quantity. It's a corps that showed the might of the Empire. The Magic Beast Corps captured various magic beasts, bred, strengthened, and trained them. The culture of the magic beast was by DNA analysis, the technology of the other world. And, the strong people of the Empire riding on their back. Inborn strong people were said to have the blood of the hero who played an active part in the old times. If magic remodeling was a technique to change an ability-less person into a hero, they are born heroes. Born heroes having an overwhelming ability. A minor corps with only 30,000 personnel was said that one of them had the ability of 10,000 people. But, the magic beast they rode, all had the strength appropriate to a rank. It's a corps with only 30,000 people that call themselves the strongest elite corps that the Empire boasts of. The last entry, Mixed Corps. This corps, so to speak, was a mish and mash. The den of dropouts, where black sheep were gathered, or so the people generally thought. However, while it may be true that they were dropouts, it didn't mean they don't have ability. It may be said that various experiments and new trials are carried out by this corps. The corps own their own technology development department. It also have magic research department. Their potential was unknown. This corps employs the most otherworlders as combatants. The total number of soldiers, 200,000 people. However, a lot of them were intelligence officers and general office work soldiers. The number of soldiers that can actually fight were around 100,000 people. In disfavor of magic remodeling, people who can't ride magic beasts and people of the former Magic Corps that have no place to go were taken into this corps. But, it had been already recognized that the forces were more than the former Magic Corps, although it was such a jumble. Despite its newly created status, it tied against the Armored Remodeled Legion in a mock battle, though it's under the same number condition. A high future was anticipated from this corps. Its flexibility came due to the condensation of the good points and then reorganized it. It's a corps that was established with such a purpose. These are the Empire's new 3 great corps. A large force. 1,130,000 soldiers may went to the front line without any problem, even if an order for a military campaign was given right now. Judging from the prediction about the West Side's total military force and armaments that the Intelligence Bureau obtained, the Empire's army could be said to be too overwhelming. Calgurio could speak openly because he had confidence as he within the strongest and in addition, the corps with the largest personnels. There are many people who fear Feldera but Calgurio was not afraid of it. After all, it's only a dragon, right? So he thought. There are dragons residing in the Kanat Great Mountain Range. It's surely a strong monster. In case of lesser dragon that inhabits the foot of the mountain, when an individual grew up to medium dragon, its strength becomes more than of a rank. The force of one squadron from the Armored Remodeling Legion is needed even if it's just an individual. He handled the dragon subjugation in military drills several times and he familiarized himself with the information about such things. Even so. On the contrary, the more he familiarized himself with it, the more he could come up with countermeasures against an individual, even for a dragon. It's just one dragon, what do we have to fear? Calgurio reached such state of mind. A monster's strength is decided on the amount of energy. It doesn't change no matter how strong an individual is. The reason why a dragon is strong is because it can act with agile movements compared to its mass. Also, the extreme hardness of its dragon scale. Its breath attack was dangerous too, but its true nature was the amount of energy. If that is the case, there's no need to fight from the front. There's also weakening with magic, and there's also the new technology called a magic canceller, magic essence disturbance radiation. It can obstruct a magician's casting, a new technology that enables the weakening of a monster in battle. The victory will be certain if he just fire the magic cannon of the main armaments of the 4000 magic tank, but he need to be extremely cautious if there's a countermeasure. He experimented it with the captured dragon, but he was able to kill it with one shot of the magic cannon even if it was a young dragon of a rank. As for a monster, energy, magic essence amount, which was the basis of its existence will be disturbed if exposed to the magic canceller and it will be difficult for it to take an action. In short, it's weakened. If he fire volley of main armaments of the 4000 magic tank to the weakened target, the annihilation will be certain even if it's an ancient wicked dragon. The content of the strategy that Calgurio devised for battle against Feldera is as follows. Encirclement by 300 airship. Containment of Feldera action with magic canceller. Approximately 200.000 standby remodeled soldiers to confine Feldera. Volley of main armament by 4.000 magic tank. That's all. Airship is a secret weapon that can be said as the fruits of magic technology. Its maximum speed can surpasses the speed of sound. It's impossible for creature with flesh body to escape from this speed without depending on magic. The winning chance of the battle can increase with the accumulation of information after all. The airship had buried a great number of dragon and accumulation of information is everything. Calgurio was convinced of the victory and had an absolute confidence. Gadra, the Imperial Court magician, an ex-hero that once called that have grew old by now. He will be at Calgurio mercy if he threaten him with several soldiers equipped with magic canceller without being able to resist anything. But, Calgurio think that he must not lack in etiquette as Gadra still a hero. Phew. He was a person of the past after all. Even till now, old people still cause problem. War potential reinforcement depend on the passage of times. He's a pitiful old man that can't follow it. Your Majesty, Gadra Raushi seem to fear Feldera very much, but I'm different. Please give an order for the wicked dragon subjugation to this Calgurio by all means. Calgurio, who stands up and bows from the other side of the blinds, said that request to the Emperor. Gadra turned a sharp gaze to Calgurio, but he let out a sigh like he have given up and recited deeply. Yuuki watched that exchanges with relish. It's because the fool, Calgurio, seemed to move as he thought. Anyway, the biggest wall for the rise of coup d'état is armored corps. He thought that he wanted this corps to weaken quickly. Calgurio was a man who should be called as officer than a soldier. He's strong in battle but he's concerned about plan and certain victory, a riskless man. But, he had the aspect not to mind a loss as he was greedy, and he will move if there's a worthy reason. The important thing is as long as he given a reason, it's all good. The monster's country Tempest has money. And, there's surely new technology that developed there from a different viewpoint that's still unseen by the Empire. Yuuki had guessed that Calgurio will move if he showed the thing indirectly. Money will attract the nobles supporting Calgurio. It will be a different story if a new technology is hidden. Calgurio will not move only by being requested by the nobles. He will turn his fang greed not only to Tempest but also the satellite city and the labyrinth itself. According to Yuuki expectation, Calgurio seemed to dance wonderfully. Calgurio, are you going to steal the march? Your Majesty, my magic beast core can also be deployed anytime. Please give the wicked dragon subjugation to this me by all means. The beast king Gladim which kept silence before so roars. Just by standing up, there was a feeling of overwhelming coercion in the place. Definitely the personality of a ruler. A great general that proud of the outstanding fighting power within the empire which even rule the magic beasts under the power. He's a person said to be the second strongest man in the empire. Calgurio and Gladim let their gaze intersected to restrain each other. Seeing that situation, Yuuki let out a sigh in his mind. The magic beast core was certainly strong, but it's obvious that this core wasn't suitable for this campaign. So, he didn't think that Gladim will announce himself for it. Though he doesn't deny that this core is suitable for attacking, it's not cut out to challenge Feldera. At any rate, the damage given will be not little, and it's doubtful whether in the first place there are chances of victory. Because Yuuki knew that the armored core had working over for Feldera countermeasures, he can finish reading the strategy, but he think that magic beast core will be hardly effective against Feldera. From what he heard from Chloe's story, Feldera could be expected to have high combat ability. It's not so bad when it's armored core, but it will be difficult for magic beast core to win against Feldera. And in this case, joint struggle don't have any meaning either. In the first place, war is decided with number. Even if there are 30,000 joined in, it will be overshadowed in front of an army that had size of 100,000. No matter how strong that unit was, if their movement are limited, then it will be difficult to dealt an effective blow. Not to mention, in case the few numbers separated, the worst case they will get encircled by the enemy army and each will be crushed. Above all, it's ideal for armored core and Feldera to face each other. Therefore it's necessary for Feldera to come out to the front though. About it, Yuuki don't worry that much. It's still good enough if it crush Rimuru executives or his subordinates' army even if Feldera doesn't appear. Comparing Rimuru army and armored core might be superior. There seem to be several strong individuals among the executives, but as for it this side also similar. Calgurio was greedy, but he's not weak at all. There are protege special duty officer and strong soldiers also enrolled, so if Feldera doesn't appear then the chance of victory wouldn't waver. It's wasteful to lose to magic beast core here. Yuki thinks that it's necessary to do something. Please wait. I think it's better to entrust this to Calgurio Dano. Calgurio flowed a thin smile to Yuuki remark, Gladim have a bitter face. And for the first time the Emperor permitted the remark. Say it, state your thought. Yuuki state the strategy with a humble look while hiding his thought in his mind. First, the armored core will invade from the front of Jura Great Forest area. Sensing the invasion of large core, it's certain that vigilance will be concentrated in Jura Great Forest area. Then, from the north side will come another invasion in order to stun the west side as a simultaneously invasion. Do you say north side? Do you mean to pass through the Kanat Great Mountain Range? To Gladim question, Yuuki denied it with a smile. And, without any taunting feel. We can evade the battle against Dragon if we go through the sea route. So he declared. Surely, judging from the flying range of the dragon, the sea route was out from the dragon's sphere of influence. However, large sea monsters inhabit the sea, and it's difficult to get rid of damage even if they went by a fleet. It's difficult to keep the superiority with the exhausted force even if it arrived at the north side's port after it passed through a disadvantageous naval battle. In addition, the Empire owns several number of sea battleships. It exists to be used for subjugation against sea monster or large sea magic beast. It's a reason needed to link the transportation fleet to transport the core, but it will be not in time if prepared now. The nobles and also the ministers raised a question to Yuuki remark. But it's possible, right? Calgurio Dano. Yuuki bring the subject to Calgurio with a smile. Calgurio realizes Yuuki intention at that point. TCH. This shitty brat. Did he aware of the existence of the treasured airship? Even though I concealed it so much and built it in secrecy. But, Calgurio thought about it. It wasn't a bad strategy. Calgurio had also considered the strategy to attack from the north side. But, he stopped it this time because there will be a problem in the number of soldiers and the formation if he greatly distributed his corps. He concentrate on Feldera and the labyrinth. That was the decision that Calgurio put out though. It's interesting. The airship transports the magic beast core and afterward it devoted itself on support and supply. As for snatching only the profit, this might be possible. In any case, if I arranged a large force to launch a surprise attack from the north side of the West Alliance, it can be a reason to forestall the people to not turn their eyes to the other side. The military gains are big. Of course, it will become a feat for aerial fighter legion. Calgurio quickly calculated it in his head. The scales incline toward profit and lead to a decision. Well, I can't be careless to you, Akidano. I wonder where did you obtain that information from? It's really astounding. No, it's because I have connections. There are many acquaintances from the same town you see. I see. I consent it. It have been exposed earlier, but sure. There's a new weapon called airship which developed in my corps. The aerial fighter legion is making use of this new weapon. This is the centerpiece, the trump card. It possible for aerial fighter legion to transport the magic beast core. By Calgurio remark, the inside of the conference hall grows excited instantly. It's because there's a way to invade the western countries without going through Jura Great Forest. It was natural that they were excited. However, approximately the maximum number of soldiers that can be transported is 100,000 people. It might be difficult to conquer the West with only this. Thus, I insist on the simultaneous strategy. Calgurio announces the strategy that he made in his mind while revising his own strategy. 100 ships of aerial fighter legion will deal with Feldera, the remaining 300 ships will support the magic beast core. The strategy will succeed perfectly if he send the best of the magician to fight Feldera. While considering it, Gladym groans. It will be an honor for soldier to fight against the strongest dragon named Feldera. However, this strategy came with a reason. Above all, there seems to exist a group that specialized in individual combat that's said to be the strongest group called Holy Knight Order in the West. It seemed their number were only 200 people, but he thought that he wanted to have a fight with them once. Besides, there exists a country with faith as the cornerstone in the West called Holy Empire Rubrios. There seem to be guard army under the Pope direct control that rival the Holy Knight in that country. He will crush that guard army and trample its holy capital. Gladym felt that the beast's blood that flows in his body began to boil hot. It might be good. Let's go with that strategy. The excitement in the large conference hall has risen further with the words of agreement roared by the beast king Gladym. We'll win without a doubt. Victory for us, people of the empire. Long live, your majesty the emperor. So in such situation, they were already entranced with imagination of the victory. The strategy was worked out smoothly and the plan was settled without a hitch. They finally got the permission from the emperor and the strategy was approved. A simultaneous two-sides invasion strategy was decided with the sortie of the empire. Yuuki sneers in his mind. Everything was going according to his expectations and he become desperate to endure his laughter. With this, he can push away the nuisance magic beast core to distant place, and the weakening of armored core will be certainly done too. Even if Feldera doesn't come out particularly, the strategy is a success even if it just decreasing Rimuru hand pieces. It can be say that best result is both side can be exhausted. And he can consume the weakened empire from the inside and surge into a great war with all forces it has. While the chaos arises in the world, let's aim at an opportunity to kill Rimuru in that gap. Guy Crimson and Rimuru. Two people who Yuuki should be careful with. He cannot be too careful with the other demon lords either, but he will manage it somehow if he had time. Letting Chloe who is the strongest hero dispose one, and in that gap he would get rid of the rest together with Chloe in 1-against-1 fight. If he do so, the limitation of his own ultimate ability will disappears and it's possible to put Milim under his control. But there was a reason why Yuuki didn't carry it out. The reason why Guy Crimson didn't move for a long time is unknown. The reason why that arrogant demon lord didn't move. That's a uneasiness, whether it's because of something which he should be cautious of. He should be careful. Therefore Yuuki hesitated about using his trump card named Chloe. Anyway, if this war become big and the world falls into disorder, something will happen. Then, I may see the thing hidden if that happen, right? Yuuki laughed happily and thinking about the event in the future. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 150, Expectations That Became True. Once again a big thanks to Guro-san and co for helping me edit my messy translations. Give them a round of applause. Get it? Applause, moving on. On a side note, if anyone wants to see some illustrations for Volume 6, here's some from a Chinese web translation. http://www.wenq8.com/novel/1/1787/72626.htm. Without further ado, enjoy. 150. Expectations That Became True. On that day, I had finished the improvement of the surveillance magic, and proceeded to test it. My current location is at the Tactical Class Military Operated Battle Command Post, aka, the Control Room. Going with the flow of things, I decided to give it a cool name, but now it's a little too long and I'm regretting it. To be frank, only a few people knew its original name since everyone simply calls it Control Room. It's newly established next to Feldera private quarters in the 100th floor of the dungeon. It's made possible to come in and out to this place from Tempest's Strategy Conference Hall. The important base was fundamentally established inside the dungeon. The results were excellent. Several large screens that were used during the tournament were set in this room, each of them displayed a scene from different places. The various areas within Jura Great Forest, and the trade route with the Dwarf Kingdom. I'm now able to observe various important points one by one. Even the state of the sea routes and the Kanat mountain ranges can be displayed without any problem. The concept is simple. Utilizing the physics magic, Megiddo, God's Wrath, which I created, lens-shaped water drops which were handled by the spirit. It's excellent as I can use it with low cost. The images enlarged by the large lens are reflected onto a mirror to be relayed to a similar mirror deployed near the stratopause, and the images will be transferred to this place. Note, mean stratopause, the boundary between mesosphere and stratosphere. At the same time, the transmission of images is directly dealt with via spatial control, leaving no moment of gap due to instantaneous transfer of data. The images projected on the screen had HD quality after being processed by Wisdom King Raphael. There are two projections, in case one get destroyed or is being deceived. Now then, there's another merit from the completion of this surveillance system. I'm able to use Megiddo, God's Wrath, while being inside this control room. I tested it by shooting it at Gobuta's feet, who was training at the square, but I didn't think I would actually succeed. The Gobuta face who jumped up in surprise was unforgettable. You fool! It's because you let your guard down. So I preached him instead. Conversely though, I thought that Gobuta wasn't so bad. In addition, the performance of Megiddo, God's Wrath, has improved. Originally, it was optimized by Great Sage, but the current Wisdom King Raphael didn't seem to agree to it. It developed it more meticulously and had developed a system of 24-hour satellites that would float in the sky. It's usable even at night. With my magic essence as the fuel, there's now a Great Spirit class geostationary satellite permanently hovering near the stratopause. Once it runs out, I would simply need to supplement it. In addition, its position that unrelated to day and night make it could convergence direct sunlight, so it's possible for it to reflect and radiate energy anytime. It can't be helped that energy loss would occur, but still the power of the light ray was more powerful than before and can be used at night. It's natural, but there's also a bit of energy loss even during the day. As the amount of light it converged increases, so too does the amount of heat. It's now even possible to exert powers on PAR with a heat ray gun. I might even be able to completely annihilate the human army without moving a step. I had such impressions as I've been carrying out the magic modification. Well then, with the images of various areas displayed onto the large screen, the experiment was a success. When I came back to the office after I confirmed the result, Shana arrived and told me there was a guest. From what I can see, there are quite a lot of them. Oh well, you could say that most of my work involve interacting with guests. And the rest are developing magic and coming up with items that looks interesting, oh and assigning the right man for the right job. Playing is also part of my work. With this feeling, I've faced my guest seriously. I was guided by Shana to the reception room. Inside the room were 4 individuals waiting with nervous looks on their faces. It was a familiar trio, and an old man I've seen for the first time. The trio was Shinji I and Ko, who played an active role in the previous capturing of the dungeon before. First of all, we greet each other, and then I hear their circumstances. As expected, under secret order from the Empire, they seemed to be sent in order to collect information for the campaign. They formally introduced their name, and started explaining their internal conditions. They've consented that this was an order from Yuuki. I thought it would have been him. But unfortunately, our dungeon was more difficult than what Yuuki had anticipated. Or rather, it was also harder than what I anticipated. This really isn't something people can simply laugh off. If you think normally, you will not think about such a growth, or rather that evolution. I think it's an inevitable thing. Well, that's all good. Let's forget about it. Well, afterwards they seemed to have reported this to Yuuki, but for some reason it has leaked out to the leaders of the other corps. They were caught and seems to have been subjected to interrogation. They were doused with drug to make them submit, and in the end a bomb appeared to be planted into their hearts. At that time, Shinji's teacher, who was also the Imperial Court magician Gadraraoshi, who seemed to be the old man that came along with them, rescued them, and escaped to this place. Wait, are you guys alright with that bomb? When I asked. Ah, it has already been removed. We bought a new bracelet, and detonated it in the dungeon. Shinji replied with a nonchalant face. It seemed the bomb was set to detonate itself if it was removed via surgery. It seemed to be a cliché bomb, so it looks like they didn't think up another good plan. Anyway, as soon as they were rescued from the jail by Gadraraoshi, they came to this side with Shinji transfer magic. They went to the labyrinth at once, then blew up the bomb inside the labyrinth before the Empire side realized their escape and detonates the bomb. Well, certainly they would revive even if they died inside the dungeon, but that certainly was a drastic act. Didn't you consider that it might affected the traps or monster battles inside the dungeon? So after I inquired him, his face became pale and he was at a loss for words. Apparently, they were panicked and didn't think to that extent. Hey, Shinji. Oi. Don't tell me that you didn't think about that. So Mark retort. Ha, ha ha ha. I had thought about that, of course. Shinji answered whilst avoiding Mark's gaze. Oh well, at that time Shinji had insisted that he going to treat it later with his abilities, but this couldn't be retorted as Shinji had tried it first. After that, Gadra said that it would be better off to not believe Yuuki, and if that was the case they should defect. I then pay more attention to Gadraraoshi for the first time. He doesn't look too showy, but he worn a high quality like magic clothes. He is a sharp-eyed old man. So, that Gadra-san, why you come here together with them? To my question. To be honest, I'm a reincarnator. Gadra-san suddenly brought up a shocking revelation. The trio also surprised, as they stared intently at Gadraraoshi. According to what he said, he seemed to reincarnated many times in order to master the grand magic. Then, he also participated in the previous Feldera subjugation war, and was splendidly killed. Honestly, it was the right choice for me to finish the reincarnation ritual beforehand. I wanted to witness it with my own eyes. The highest pinnacle of monster brought about by nature. There were only 4 dragonkind that born unto this world. They were the apex of monsters, the strongest being of this world. And then, as this was said from his actual fighting experience, he didn't think the Empire would triumph over Feldera, so he said this to me. And the demon lord that become a sworn friend with that Feldera, aka me, had raised his interest. I don't feel any particular obligation to the Empire. The core that I had brought up with great care has been taken away, now I have no more attachments to it. Besides, that Adalman resides in the dungeon of this country, or so I heard from my disciple. Wow, it seems that Gadraraoshi was Adalman's friend from several thousand years ago. At that time, in the west near the side of the Jura Great Forest was a small country. Secret magic research seemed to be conducted in that country. In a few brief words, he would read treasured books of each royal palace and build up his knowledge whenever he reincarnated. It seems he was a born egotist and he asserted that he have no relation to things like loyalty. He's quite the old man. I'll keep the fact I actually respect him quite a bit to myself. Of course, the details about Ramaris and the dungeon, he has heard it all from Shinji's tale. So it seems. While whistling and pretend that he didn't know anything, he seemed to have played tricks on Shinji and Ko to make them talk, but there was no point to that anymore. The weapon that Shinji brought back, and the magic crystal was most intriguing. Those greedy people started to cry loudly for the war to start. When all is said and done, I think there's still more 10 years. I planned to reincarnate before the war starts, but I failed. However, the cause of that is the youngster named Yuuki. The one that's standing out recently, with enough influence to ascend to the top and become the new core leader. He leaked the information to the other core leaders, and obviously had the interest to cause the war. Well, that has nothing to do with me anymore. Incidentally, I've decided to help my pupils because I was planning to escape with haste. So the Gadraji-san brazenly declared. But, if his words are true, then it's according to my expectations. Yuuki made the fact that high-quality, magic crystal, and high-performance arms can be acquired from the labyrinth to be known. Then, what will happen? I could expect that people who suggest to start the war early would appear from the Empire side. To be honest, I'm not the patient kind. Over this 1 year, I've been wholeheartedly waiting, and it's been peeving me off. Let's just finish this war, defeat Yuuki, and save Chloe. Therefore, I want that side to start attacking us, and I will ignore these three. Otherwise, there will no reason to overlook them who we known were spies. Alright, it's as planned. Shinji was surprised with my declaration, but Gadraji-san simply nodded with a smug look on his face. He seems to notice our ulterior motive. Of course, Yuuki probably already see through my thought, though he seems to have hopped on the plan and began moving. According to what Gadraji-san said, the Empire seems to have started to prepare for the start of the war. I hear that surrender advice will be done once rather than the declaration of war. Then I'll simply follow it if they started the battle, there will be no mercy after that. If that's the case, this side also don't need to cut any corners. I'll just finish it in a flash, and uproot the root of evil. The 3 deserters were accepted at my own discretion. Gadraji-san was given the guest treatment. But, this old man ended up as the new guardian of the 60th floor later, and become a hidden boss besides the demon golem though. That was a story unrelated to the current moment. The conference of the war in the large conference room had ended, and the emperor was relaxing in his room. With a beautiful woman with hair of azure attending by his side. Emperor Ludra was facing the beautiful girl at his side. Well then, the pawns seemed to be all present, Felgurind. Do you think your younger brother would come out this time? So he asked her with an intimate tone. The beauty, Felgurind being asked, naturally replied the emperor. The reason why he asked her that was because she was one of the dragon kind, the strongest being, the scorching dragon, Felgurindo. Yeah, Ludra. He would come out. Because that child loves festivals. Is that so? That's right, huh? It would be great if our army could defeat him. Otherwise. This time for sure, I want to checkmate Guy and my elder sister Velzada. Phew. So you're aiming at Guy. If you fight against Feldera, then there'll a chance for me. Yes, it's vexing. Otherwise, I'll need to deal with that child, Feldera, quickly. Ha ha ha. However, this time my ability, the special skill of my ultimate skill Justice King Michael, enabled me to utilize the Armageddon, Army of Angel. Guy companions seem to increase in power, though they have united yet. This time, we have an overwhelming advantage. Oh? Then, should I execute a plan to bring that child over to this side? Once taken down, he can't be Guy Peace, do you want to capture him after I weaken him? Famu, let's go with that. However, a human's flesh really is inconvenient. Every time I reincarnate, inheriting the soul and ego. The ability limitation I suffered depends on the timing. This time, I've waited until I'm at perfect condition. My army is well prepared, and there's no limitation on my ability. If you can focus Feldera consciousness, my ruler's control should be able to take control of him. Oh, then victory is imminent. But somehow that child doesn't seem to be in his usual condition ever since his seal was removed. His rampaging like violent magic essence storms had vanished completely. Maybe he isn't back to his usual self yet. Don't mind it. Guy would simply discard weak people, he wouldn't make them into pawns. Despite this, he's been raising demon lords, but he has yet to control them. Actually, the newcomer demon lord named Rimuru seems to be popular with the other demon lords. That's true. It would be against the rules for Guy if he turned human into his control. And it would be against the rules for us to turn demon lord into our pawns, but that's just fine. Before that demon lord, Rimuru, grow up, it's best for us to crush him as soon as possible. Even so, the demon lords gathered in that place at a good timing. Rimuru and Ramiris, we can take down 2 demon lords at the same time. Note, he referred to Rimuru and Ramiris with, basically treating them as small fries. Indeed. Well, let's try to rage as flashy as possible. Once Feldera is in our grasp, their role ends. You'll bestow upon them a reign of mercy with your ultimate skill Charity King Ragel. It might be good if we conquered that town quickly. So, let's give them some charity after such a long time. Let give them a peaceful death, blessing. The two spoke for a bit. And then, on the next day, a large army from the Empire with a size unprecedented in history depart with Monster Country's Tempest as their destination. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.